In a village full of geniuses and saints, Wazoo is the only one who's just ordinary. Even the neighbors pity him, reminding him how tiring it must be to live in the shadow of his genius sister, Kagane, and his childhood friend, the holy woman Arya. But the quiet routine is shattered when his sister Kagane comes sprinting toward him with the news of a lifetime. Arya has finally returned. While the entire village is in a frenzy, celebrating the hero who successfully subjugated the Ma'u. Lost in the crushing crowd, Wazoo can't even see her, but he's just relieved that she's safe. While everyone admires Arya's ethereal beauty, the king asks the hero for his reward. Wazoo watches from afar, feeling a strange distance growing between them, yet clinging to the hope of their shared history. They weren't just friends. They were soulmates who made a sacred oath at 12 to stay together forever. They were even engaged, a fact that drove Kagane absolutely wild with jealousy. But destiny took a cruel turn when the Ma'u appeared, and Arya was chosen as the holy woman. Wazoo desperately tried to follow her, only to be mocked by the hero, who dismissed him as nothing more than a trivial guy. Humiliation left, a scar that never truly healed. Even as Kagane tried to comfort him, suggesting they could go back to how things were, the memory of that belittlement still stung. Then comes the moment that destroys everything. With a smug smile, the hero announces the only reward he wants, the holy woman Arya as his wife. Wazoo's world practically stops spinning. Total mental collapse. Wazoo doesn't even remember how he got home, only that this nightmare happened on his 15th birthday. He turns and bolts, fleeing the celebration and the heartbreak. Alone in his room, clutching a childhood drawing of their happiness, Wazoo breaks down. He leaves behind a final devastating note, wishing Arya and the hero happiness while he vanishes from their lives forever. Wazoo sets his sights on the horizon, heading straight for the imposing peak of the legendary mountain. Escaping his hometown in despair was the hardest part, but the wilderness has other plans. Suddenly, something lunges from the brush, leaving him wondering what on earth is wrong with this place. He's barely reached the foothills of the mountain before he's cornered by a bizarre duo, a muscular fishman and a fierce cat person. He's absolutely terrified, unable to believe this is how his journey begins. A chaotic scramble for survival as he's pummeled by the unlikely pair. As he hits the dirt in pain, one question keeps looping in his head. Why would a cat and a fish even team up to hunt him? The monsters are practically drooling, seeing him as a snack. In a desperate attempt to save himself, Wazoo tries the most pathetic plea possible, telling them he tastes terrible. He wonders if they even understand human speech, briefly considering playing dead to survive. But one deafening roar from the cat beast kills that idea instantly. There's only one option left: run for his life. With the monsters hot on his heels, Wazoo spots a rope bridge leading further into the mountain. He has no idea what horrors await him up there, but it's better than being dinner. He's desperately searching for a hiding spot. But the chase doesn't stop. The monsters leap onto the bridge with such force that the whole structure begins to buckle, threatening to send them all plummeting. He can't believe how persistent these things are. But boom! A massive crash echoes through the forest, leaving Wazoo frozen in shock. Beaten and breathless, Wazoo collapses, convinced he's a goner. As he stares at his attackers, he wonders if his life is really going to end here. But in the depths of his despair, his fist clenches. Wazoo is at his breaking point, practically begging the monsters to just end it, until a shadow falls over him that makes the current threat look like a joke. Out of the darkness emerges a nightmare, a colossal black dragon and a skeletal knight, dwarfing Wazoo in a display of pure, overwhelming power. The skeletal warrior is curious about the human in their path, but the dragon has a different take, dismissing Wazoo as nothing more than a pathetic, lost soul. Skeleton tries to play peacemaker, telling the dragon, Neil, that it's only natural for an ant to be terrified of a tiger. They claim they have zero interest in him, leaving Wazoo completely baffled. With a final scoff about how Wazoo is too small to even be a snack, the monsters vanish. Wazoo is left staring in awe at the real dragon, unaware that he'll one day actually face this beast in battle. Survival is a daily grind. After deciding a river crossing is a death sentence, Wazoo retreats to his cave, only to find a colony of ants hauling a mysterious fruit. Logic is simple. If the ants can eat it, he can too. He uses his guild card as a makeshift knife to peel the fruit, discovering that while the skin is vile, the inside is a lifesaver. A bittersweet memory surfaces. Wazoo only joined the guild to stay close to his childhood friend Arya, and to keep up with the hero. But compared to his genius sister Kagane, he always felt like a mediocre F-rank. The loneliness is suffocating. Trapped in a forest he can't escape, Wazoo questions his own sanity for ever venturing into an S-tier mountain where he feels completely powerless. This is the Mountain of Death, a place of S-tier monsters and brutal extremes. From raging storms and blinding fog to a scorching sun, Wazoo is fighting a war against nature itself just to stay alive. Trapped in a cave between a lethal forest and an impossible mountain, Wazoo is at his lowest. He's convinced he's just waiting to slowly die, too terrified to even step foot outside. But survival is a brutal game, and a growling stomach doesn't care about fear. Driven by sheer hunger, Wazoo forces himself out to scavenge, enduring falls and failures just to find a few berries. Wasting away, his body growing thin as he battles starvation. While his will to survive is there, the agonizing hunger makes him crave real meals that now feel like a distant, impossible dream. Desperation leads him to the unthinkable. To stay alive, Wazoo begins eating the rotting leftovers of dead beasts, a stomach-churning necessity that he forces himself to swallow. Trying to wash away the foul taste, he eats a plant that turns out to be poisonous, leaving him paralyzed and helpless. As he collapses, he catches a glimpse of something he hasn't seen in ages, the sun. While frozen in place, a mysterious glowing orb begins to circle him. Wazoo watches in a mix of curiosity and panic, wondering if this strange entity is lost or about to strike. A sudden flash of light hits him, and Wazoo blacks out. He wakes up later completely confused, dismissing the bizarre encounter as a hallucination or perhaps a ghost. Memories of a happier time flood back, of a childhood promise and a sweet proposal to Arya. But the dream shatters as the scene shifts to the hero, who is asking for a reward of his own. The hero's cold claim to Arya as his reward acts ass. Waking up from his stupor, Wazoo feels a surge of renewed determination. He refuses to just lie down and die. With a new will to live, Wazoo begins a grueling trial and error process of eating and vomiting to find edible food. Months pass, and as he adapts to the wilderness, he begins to wonder if he's become too wild to ever return to human society. Wazoo wanders the forest, feeling the weight of his long solitude. But everything changes when he produces a guild card, a tool that can reveal a person's true power with just a single drop of blood. He expects numbers, but the card delivers a brutal roast instead. His HP is getting weaker, his strength is a try harder, and his vitality is basically paper armor. Wazoo is left staring in absolute disbelief. Confused and desperate, he flips the card over to check his skills, only to find a bizarre list including a taste for bad food and goddesses' sympathy. The shock is too much. He lets out a scream that echoes through the wilderness just to keep from losing it. Once the panic subsides, he digs into the details. The goddess has granted him protection and a strange ability to grow stronger by eating garbage. It's a lifeline, but Wazoo can't help but wonder what on earth is wrong with this card. Is this all just a dream? As he reflects, a memory clicks. That glowing ball of light he encountered must have been the goddess herself. Now she's literally residing inside his guild card, watching over him. Just as he accepts his weakness, the card starts talking back. The text shifts in real time, offering him cheering words and emotional support. Wazoo's relief quickly turns to horror. Is the goddess reading his mind? Despite the creepiness, he realizes this protection is a godsend. With his stats in the gutter, his only hope for growth is that weird bad food skill. He decides to stop staring at his failures and start a very questionable diet. And so begins the most disgusting training montage in history. Wazoo forces himself to eat poisonous mushrooms and wild weeds, relying on the goddess's protection to survive the agony. Between the poisoning and the physical grind, he's determined to evolve. Half a year passes in a blur of survival and strange meals. When he finally checks his status, the paper armor is gone, replaced by a steel body and strength that can take down a bear. Even his skills have evolved, turning his bad taste into the unique glutton ability. The goddess cheers him on through the card, but her bubbly encouragement only makes him feel more uneasy. With a new level of power, Wazoo steps out of the shadows for his first real monster hunt, and a day that will change everything. Survival in the wild isn't a game, it's a grind. Without a weapon, Wazoo has to rely on ultimate patience, turning himself into the bait for a trap, and praying for a beast that actually tastes good. And then, he feels it. Something is finally here, but the excitement vanishes in a heartbeat. Instead of a juicy beast, a wobbling translucent slime drifts into view. Wazoo's face goes completely blank. This is definitely not what he had in mind. The tragedy of the century. He wanted juicy meat, but he got a slimy jelly thing. After a brief moment of pure despair, he sighs in defeat, accepting that his dinner tonight is going to be jelly. But this isn't just any jelly. Wazoo quickly realizes the danger as the slime melts through bamboo and even a rock lizard with ease. He recalls that real adventurers use long spears and fire arrows to keep their distance from the core for a reason. Suddenly, the slime lashes out, spraying corrosive acid that nearly catches him off guard. Panicking as he dodges the attack, Wazoo frantically looks around. Is there anything in this wasteland he can actually use as a weapon? Desperation leads to the simplest solution, a rock. With a determined look, he hurls the stone with everything he's got, hoping it's enough to stop the acidic monster. One hit. That's all it took. Wazoo stares in disbelief at the obliterated slime, barely realizing that his survival training has made him absurdly powerful. He spends the following days quietly studying the forest's monsters, still clueless about his own strength. Back in his cave, Wazoo turns the walls into a makeshift encyclopedia. He meticulously sketches every monster he's encountered, turning his survival struggle into a detailed record of the wild. With the drawings finished, he looks over his map. He's already circled the entire forest, leaving only one unexplored territory on the horizon. The legendary mountain. Determined to get even stronger, he prepares to move on. As he eats his final meal, he can almost hear a girl named Kagane scolding him for his tattered clothes, leaving him with a small, nostalgic smile before he heads toward his next challenge. Wazoo is gearing up for his journey to the mountain, crafting his own clothes and shoes from monster hides. He's not exactly a fashion icon, but he's more worried about the sadness in his heart than his style. Tomorrow morning, he sets off. Time for a status check. It's been over a year since he fled town, and Wazoo discovers his stats have reached absurd, godlike levels. He can smash stars and outrun light, yet he looks at these impossible numbers and thinks, wait, isn't this a bit exaggerated? Even the goddess is freaking out. Wazoo is barely 88% human now, and his super glutton skill has pushed his growth to the absolute max. He's becoming so powerful that he starts to worry. If he keeps growing, will he ever be able to fit back into normal society? With the world feeling too small, Wazoo heads deep into the mountain to find a real challenge. The monsters that once terrified adventurers are now nothing more than pebbles in his path. He's searching for the limit of his own strength. Just as he's taking a moment to admire the breathtaking view, a sudden shift in the air puts him on alert. Something massive is approaching fast, and Wazoo's eyes widen as he catches a glimpse of it. Boom! A colossal black dragon crashes down from the sky, obliterating a lesser monster in a single strike. The sheer scale of the beast is overwhelming, but Wazoo just stands there, watching the chaos unfold. The dragon doesn't just kill, it feasts. As Wazoo watches the beast devour its prey, the reality hits him. He's just come face to face with a legendary dragon. The dragon is baffled. It can't believe a mere human managed to reach this forbidden territory on foot. But when Wazoo honestly explains he just walked here, the dragon takes it as a joke and loses its patience. But wait, the prey wasn't dead. The horned demon launches a desperate sneak attack, screaming for the dragon's head. It's a chaotic clash of monsters, and Wazoo is caught right in the middle of the crossfire. After brushing off the demon, the dragon is back to questioning Wazoo's presence in its backyard. But Wazoo isn't intimidated. He's actually annoyed that the fight got blood all over his favorite monster hide clothes. The dragon is left wondering if this human is a genius or just completely brain-dead. Wazoo comes face to face with a massive armored dragon who demands to know what a mere human is doing in such a place. With a casual shrug, Wazoo reveals his true purpose. He's simply wandering around, searching for any being stronger than himself. The beast introduces himself as the Dragon King and offers to be Wazoo's opponent. Wazoo isn't impressed, questioning if the dragon is the only one calling himself a king, while the Dragon King condescendingly promises not to kill him. Facing the towering presence of the Dragon King, Wazoo reflects on a moment of carelessness. He admits that challenging this beast was a decision he would soon come to regret deeply. The battle erupts instantly as the Dragon King unleashes a devastating strike. But as the clash shakes the earth, the scene shifts away to a peaceful town, where a church bell tolls. In the bustling center market of the Iskoa Kingdom, we meet Kagane, who is still desperately searching for her brother Wazoo. Despite her efforts, she's found no clues, though she jokingly claims her useless brother can't survive without her. Kagane continues her search, chatting with locals who agree that Wazoo seems like the type to get lost. While she's treated like a favorite in town, the conversation turns serious as they discuss the places he might be, specifically mentioning that he'd never dare go near the dreaded northern mountain. A local teases her, suggesting Wazoo might have found a beautiful girlfriend, which Kagane immediately shuts down with a confident no way. But her focus breaks when she accidentally drops her cup, causing a small commotion. A traveling peddler steps in to help, offering his knowledge of various towns to aid in her search. As Kagane wonders where her brother has been all this time, the scene cuts back to the battle with a brutal scream. Die! The Dragon King is genuinely surprised that Wazoo could withstand his strike. While the dragon decides to get serious, Wazoo reveals his true intent. He took the hit on purpose just to gauge his own strength, and he's already spotted the openings he needs to win. In a sudden overwhelming burst of power, Wazoo strikes back. The impact is cataclysmic, sending the Dragon King flying as the entire landscape is engulfed in a blinding explosion. A massive blast of fire consumes the man, but as the smoke clears, he's standing there completely unscathed, though not entirely. He's lost every single stitch of clothing, leaving the dragon absolutely baffled. The dragon is losing its mind over how the man survived the attack. But the man has a much more pressing concern. The clothes he spent 3 months making are now ash. When the dragon screams at him for prioritizing fashion over survival, the man tells him to look at the environment. Realization hits. The ground beneath him has literally melted into a river of lava from the sheer intensity of the clash. The dragon is insulted that this is all the man noticed, and in a fit of rage, decides to end him once and for all. Just as the dragon lunges, the man strikes back with a blow so powerful it creates a shockwave, shutting the dragon up instantly. One hit was all it took to send the massive beast crashing down. Looking at the devastation, the man starts to wonder if he overdid it, finally admitting to himself that normal humans definitely can't do this. Morning arrives, and the dragon is surprisingly chatty, even mocking the man for still being naked. After a brief argument about what time of day it actually is, the conversation turns to the fight, and the man asks the obvious question: why is he still alive after winning? The Dragon King is genuinely amused that the man had no interest in killing him, only in replacing his wardrobe. Finding this absurdity hilarious, the king offers a deal. Follow him to his castle, and he'll provide the clothes. With the Dragon King, now identified as Ragnir, acting as a mount, the two soar across the peaks. As they fly, the man introduces himself as Wazoo, a genuine human, though his strength suggests otherwise. Wazoo is completely captivated by the breathtaking view from the sky, but he's still worried about how to pay for his new clothes. Ragnar shuts that down quickly. That one devastating punch was payment enough. They touch down at a castle so grand it puts the Iskoa royal castle to shame. Wazoo is in total awe of the architecture, but then a sudden realization hits him, leaving the proud Dragon King confused. Wazoo is stuck in the most awkward position possible, completely naked and told to wait while the massive dragon plays gatekeeper. He just wants his clothes, but the dragon's ego is as oversized as its wingspan. Then a sudden noise breaks the silence, catching his attention. But wait, who's this? A tiny, adorable white dragon appears, and Wazoo can't help but give in to the sheer cuteness of the little creature. The little guy is full of energy, squeaking and fluttering around him in a flurry of affection, but the mood shifts instantly. Wazoo's instincts kick in as he senses someone approaching. Enter a squad of high-level threats: an elf, a necromancer, a werewolf, and a hooded killer. Their first reaction to the intruder? Judging Wazoo for having the shame of being stark naked in front of a lady. The tension spikes as Wazoo stands his ground, completely exposed but totally unfazed, facing down the menacing group with the tiny dragon perched on his head. High Elf Rudo makes the first move with a lightning-fast strike, but the result is a total shock. Wazoo catches the blade with his bare hand like it's a toy, leaving the elf completely speechless. Not wanting to be outdone, the group launches a coordinated assault, with Necromancer Neil unleashing a devastating corpse's lightning. Wazoo's only reaction? Genuine confusion about why they're even doing this. The attackers are starting to sweat. Even after their best moves, Wazoo remains completely unscathed, calmly asking if they're finally done. But they're not giving up. The Beastmen gain and the others double down, aiming for his very heart. Wazoo gives them a confident smirk and a simple challenge: come at me. A split second later, the Elite squad is nothing more than a pile of unconscious bodies on the floor, leaving Wazoo wondering what all the fuss was about. Just as Wazoo is processing the win, the massive white dragon returns with a booming demand for explanations. First order of business? Get this man some clothes before he embarrasses everyone further, while the little dragon, Rainier, trembles in fear. A majestic white dragon introduces herself as Meryl, the mother of the little dragon currently perched on Wazoo's head. She notes that Mir has taken a serious liking to him, something that almost never happens. Wazoo can only stare in disbelief. Really? But not everyone is on board. Ragnir, the black dragon, looms over Wazoo with a suspicious glare, demanding to know if he has any weird intentions with the child. Meryl quickly steps in to soothe the tension, reminding Ragnir that Mir chose Wazoo herself. Ultimately, the mother dragon decides to trust the one her daughter trusts. Ragnir is still grumpy about it, but he finally gives his blessing, officially entrusting Mir to Wazoo's care. For Wazoo, this is more than just a request. Looking at the small creature, he feels an overwhelming instinctive urge to protect her, even if it means risking his own life. Life settles into a peaceful rhythm, with Wazoo and Mir bonding in the open fields. While some of his companions find the sight heartwarming, others are far more skeptical. One masked figure watches from the shadows, convinced that Wazoo looks far too ordinary to be a threat to their group. From a window, the observers note that Wazoo seems like a genuinely good person, even waving at them with a smile. But for some, that kindness is exactly what's irritating. As Mir playfully pounces on him, Wazoo struggles to keep things under control. Between lavish feasts and absurd suggestions, like starting a harem, Wazoo's days are filled with chaos. But as night falls, he reflects on his new mission, taking Mir to see the outside world. He can't help but wonder if this whole experience was actually a test of his worth. The time for departure finally arrives. As Wazoo prepares to leave, the farewells are intense. While Meryl wishes him luck, Ragnir leaves him with a chilling promise: if anything happens to Mir, he's a dead man. Wazoo can't help but feel a bit neglected. Does no one care if he survives? With a final bit of advice to be earnest and bold, the group sends them on their way. Wazoo gives a confident smile and a final wave, stepping out into the world with Mir happily riding along. Following his planned route, Wazoo treks through the dense forest, trying to orient himself. But the peace is shattered in an instant. Out of nowhere, a pair of monstrous creatures ambush him, with a feline beast screaming in shock that he's actually still alive. The ambush lasts about a second. With one explosive, effortless punch, Wazoo sends both monsters screaming into the sky. Mir watches the carnage with sparkling eyes. Her companion is absolutely awesome. Lost in the wilderness, Wazoo turns to the only divine help he's got. A quick prayer to the goddess, and suddenly she manifests in a burst of light to guide his way. The divine directions are in, and the answer is simple: east. Wazoo doesn't question it. If the goddess says that's where the fortune is, he's heading that way. Just as Wazoo is reflecting on turning 17, a mysterious hooded figure emerges from the brush. It's a human, a rare sight, and the first thing this stranger asks is if Wazoo is a bandit. Meet Shiro, a traveling peddler, who's just as surprised to see another soul on this route. Wazoo's broke, so there's no shopping today, but a strange new connection is formed over the idea of fate, from strangers to best friends in record time. They part ways with a cheerful wave and a promise of a future meal, leaving Wazoo feeling a bit more connected to the world. The peace is short-lived. Out of nowhere, a lethal arrow streaks through the air, but Wazoo catches it mid-flight with a grip of absolute steel. Big mistake. The arrow almost hit his precious Mir, and now Wazoo has flipped a switch. He's not just angry, he's absolutely murderous, charging forward with a terrifying promise to kill. Nearby, a group of ruthless bandits is playing a sadistic game with a captured elf girl. Her companions are desperate to save her, but they're completely outmatched and terrified. Just as the situation hits rock bottom, a sudden shockwave rips through the air. Wazoo has arrived on the scene, and the bandits have no idea what just hit them. Wazoo confronts the group, his eyes cold as he asks who fired the arrow. But the bandits aren't scared. They're greedy. They've just spotted Mir, and they're already calculating how much a white dragon sells for. The tension snaps as a bald thug decides he'll be the one to deal with the boy. But just as the punch connects with a brutal thud, a desperate voice cries out, hoping it's not too late. Wait, what just happened? In a blur of motion, Wazoo sends the attacker screaming through the air like a rag doll. All he can manage is a casual sorry, while the surrounding elves watch in absolute shock. The dust settles. A tearful elf girl reveals the dark truth. These men were using magic to commit atrocities against humans. Wazoo's expression darkens as he asks the one question that reveals the true horror. Who was meant to be sold at a high price? Wazoo doesn't waste a second, urging the victims to get to safety. But while he's focused on the rescue, one remaining thug sees a window of opportunity, gripping his knife for a desperate sneak attack. Suddenly, a commanding voice cuts through the chaos. Stand aside. With a single explosive burst of power, a stunning elf woman obliterates the threat, leaving Wazoo completely floored by the sheer force of the impact. Wazoo is practically starstruck, wondering if that incredible display was also magic. As he stands there in awe, the mysterious elf woman offers a graceful thank you to the stranger who helped them. The group explains that the thugs had suddenly appeared to kidnap a girl named Shiena. Deeply grateful, the elf woman invites Wazoo to return to their village so they can thank him properly. Wazoo is mesmerized by the breathtaking sight of the elven village and its towering tree houses. After introducing himself, he meets Sirona, who then decides to escort him to her house by literally flying him up, leaving Wazoo panicking because he definitely cannot fly. Carried aloft and completely bewildered, Wazoo can only stare blankly, prompting Sirona to tease him about his speechless face. By the time they land, Wazoo and Mir are warmly welcomed to spend the night at the home of the girl he saved. Over a meal, the conversation turns to the one thing the elves can't wrap their heads around: Wazoo's strength. They admit they couldn't even follow his movements, leaving them desperate to know, how on earth did he become that strong? Wazoo casually mentions his time on the mountain as if it were nothing, leaving the local elves absolutely floored. But before they can even process that, a young elf girl drops a bombshell. She wants to be his bride. After the chaos, Wazoo takes some time to unwind in a natural spring, reflecting on his recent battles and the new friends he's made. He's even thinking about giving his little companion, Mir, a bath tomorrow. Just as Wazoo is enjoying the refreshing water, he has no idea he's being watched from the shadows. A mysterious hooded figure keeps a close eye on him as he finally decides it's time to get out. Talk about bad timing. Wazoo emerges from the water only to find Sirona right there, completely naked. The air freezes instantly as both of them realize exactly what's happening. Sirona doesn't just scream, she attacks. A devastating windspell blasts Wazoo back into the water, leaving him submerged and thinking one thing: he's seriously messed up. Watching the disaster unfold from afar, another elf woman laughs at the scene. She decides that Sorona is clearly too unstable to handle this situation on her own. Wazoo is now in full damage control mode, performing a desperate dogeza. He's practically begging for forgiveness for the accidental peek, while the other elves can't help but find his misery hilarious. Wazoo tries to apologize for the magic clash, but Sorona's reaction is unexpected. She claims she's not mad, leaving Wazoo confused by her blushing, reluctant expression. Just as Wazoo panics at the thought of being reported to the village chief, Sorona reveals she was only joking. With the tension broken, she kindly invites him to stay in the village. With everything settled, Wazoo feels a warm sense of belonging as he's thanked for his help. As Sorona heads off to speak with the chief, she leaves him with a soft, "See you later," promising to tell him more about their home. The hunt is on. Wazoo lures a massive horned beast right into the trap, signaling Luluna to get ready for the strike. With a perfectly timed arrow, Luluna creates the opening, and Wazoo leaps into action the moment she gives the signal. Wazoo has to remind himself to hold back, or he might do too much damage, but even a restrained punch sends the monster flying with devastating force. The team is floored by Wazoo's growth, praising him as a true guardian while they gather their spoils and head back to the village. As they discuss Sorona, the legendary head of the Guardians, Wazoo can't help but feel a bit lost in the conversation. But the peace is shattered by a report of a giant scorpion terrorizing the hunting grounds, and a mysterious figure named Gazuna appears amidst the chaos. While Gazuna offers help, Luluna warns that he's untrustworthy, driving Wazoo and the group to rush toward the large tree to save Sorona. At the scene, Sorona is locked in a brutal struggle with the massive scorpion, while a wounded man desperately tries to protect her in return. Determined to keep the village safe, Sorona takes a heavy hit from the monster, focusing only on ensuring the wounded man can escape. Just as the scorpion's lethal stinger descends, Wazoo arrives in a flash, stepping in to shield Sorona from the crushing blow. Disaster strikes in an instant as Sorona is sent flying by a monstrous attack. Wazoo's world shatters into a scream of pure panic. He can't just stand by and watch her get hurt. Then, in a flash of absolute violence, Wazoo strikes back. One punch delivers a shockwave so massive it leaves the witnesses questioning their own sanity. What on earth did he just do? Before she can even hit the ground, Wazoo is there, catching Sorona in a perfect cinematic bridal carry. The danger is gone, replaced by a sudden, heart-stopping closeness. The party is completely floored. They can't believe he took down that nightmare with a single hit. While they're spiraling in confusion, Wazoo is just relieved to see Sorona is safe. Now comes the awkward part. Wazoo insists on carrying the wounded Sorona back to the village, but he's suddenly very conscious of being covered in dirt and sweat. Sorona, however, doesn't seem to mind one bit. Wazoo is just happy she's okay, completely oblivious to the fact that the monster isn't actually gone. A massive, terrifying shadow looms directly behind him, ready to strike. The party's screams rip through the air in a desperate warning. "Behind you!" they shriek, as the beast prepares to crush the unsuspecting Wazoo. Panic reaches a fever pitch as the party launches a desperate counterattack to distract the beast. Sorona screams for the monster to let go of Wazoo, terrified for his life. But Wazoo isn't terrified. He's actually impressed. With a casual smile, he catches the monster's lethal strike with his bare hands, treating a world-ending threat like a minor surprise. The party's brains practically shut down as they witness this impossible feat. And Wazoo? He just looks at the monster and thinks it's being persistent. The gap in their common sense is officially absurd. One final, devastating strike and it's over. While the elves can barely process how absurdly strong Wazoo is, he's already moving on, telling the group it's time to head back. The group arrives back at the elven village, where they're greeted with open arms and warm welcomes from the villagers. But not everyone is just happy to see them. A mysterious figure watches Wazoo from the shadows, noting his identity before vanishing just as Wazoo notices. Under the moonlight, Wazoo offers to walk Sorona home, his voice soft with concern for the wounds she suffered. Suddenly, a memory hits him like a truck, the last time they were alone together in a very compromising position. He spirals into a panic, wondering if she's totally grossed out by him now, until her voice snaps him back to reality. Sorona asks to stop for a moment, her expression turning serious as she thanks him for coming to her rescue. Wazoo doesn't take the credit. Instead, he apologizes for not arriving sooner and letting her get hurt. It's this humility that makes Sorona realize just how truly kind he is. For the first time, the pride of the village admits she's completely outclassed. Sorona realizes she's nothing compared to Wazoo's strength, but strangely, she doesn't mind at all. In fact, she's relieved. There's new glow in her eyes as she accepts that Wazoo is simply on another level. Wazoo is completely lost in the conversation, especially when Sorona almost says something about him liking the village, only to shut down and claim it's nothing. What is she really thinking? A mysterious figure stands over the carcass of a fallen beast, his voice dripping with disbelief, To think even the legendary scorpion was beaten? Enough is enough. This annoying human has pushed him too far, and now he's stepping in to finish things personally. Meet Kazuna. With a sinister grin and a horde of monsters at his back, he declares that the time for waiting is finally over. But let's rewind. Wazoo, after surviving a mountain of S-rank monsters and befriending a Dragon King, has traveled the world with the dragon's daughter Mir, eventually finding himself in the elven village, helping the guardian, Sorona. Fast forward 1 week later, and Wazoo's peaceful morning is shattered. Luluna bursts in, completely panicked, screaming for him to get downstairs immediately because things have gone south. The village is in an uproar. The elder announces a high-stakes match between Sorona and a man named Kazuna to decide who will be the village's head guardian. Wazoo is barely keeping up as Mir drags him toward the commotion. He's totally lost until he learns the truth. Kazuna has officially challenged Sorona to a duel. The terms are brutal. The winner takes the title, and the loser is exiled from the village forever. It's a grudge match fueled by Kazuna's lifelong jealousy of Sorona's strength. To ensure no interference, the elder casts a powerful elven barrier, sealing the combatants inside an inviolable territory. With a final shout, the battle begins. Kazuna lunges in with everything he's got. But Sorona is on another level. One devastating kick sends him crashing back, leaving him gasping for air. The crowd is cheering for Sorona. But in the shadows, Kazuna is simmering with a hatred that could burn the whole village down. While everyone celebrates, Kazuna's eyes are locked on her target with a terrifying intensity. The tension finally snaps as Kazuna lets it all out, blaming Sorona for everything that's gone wrong. Sorona can only stand there in total confusion, completely blindsided by this sudden outburst of malice. Then the madness takes over. Kazuna unleashes a devastating attack, fueled by the gospel of darkness and a grudge that has twisted his heart into something unrecognizable. The air turns cold and the atmosphere shifts. Wazoo feels a sickening dread, and suddenly a void of darkness swallows the light as the very earth begins to tremble violently. Panic rips through the village as the elders demand answers. Kazuna just smirks, revealing her twisted masterpiece, a horde of monsters born from her own pure concentrated hatred. And then they arrive. 3 nightmare creatures burst onto the scene with overwhelming power, leaving Wazoo and the other elves frozen in absolute terror. It's not just a few monsters, it's an entire army. Kazuna laughs maniacally at the chaos, knowing that Sorona's legendary kindness is now her biggest liability. The attack is relentless, sending the villagers screaming for cover. While everyone else is scrambling for their lives, Wazoo just stands there, looking completely oblivious to the scale of the disaster. Kazuna delivers the ultimate cruel ultimatum. Kill him, or watch everyone else die. He mocks Sorona's mercy, knowing she's trapped in a hopeless choice where there is no right answer. Just when all hope seems lost, a familiar face appears. Wazoo is just standing there, surrounded by a mountain of slaughtered monsters, casually waving and asking if everyone is okay. The monsters are gone in a flash, leaving the enemy in total disbelief. My monsters? The villain stammers, unable to process how a mere human could dare to do this. Wazoo doesn't even give him the satisfaction of a conversation, coldly asking if he was even talking to him in the first place. Wazoo turns to Sorona with a supportive smile, telling her to focus entirely on the boss while he handles the cleanup. But as Sorona asks the villain, Kazuna, if it's time to stop, the air turns heavy. Kazuna's fist clenches, shaking with a rage that's about to explode. A mysterious red sphere appears in Kazuna's hand, and his laughter turns sinister. He doesn't just want to win, he wants Sorona dead. With a roar, he unleashes a devastating attack, declaring that this very spot will become her grave. Everything happens in a heartbeat. Sorona barely has time to gasp, "What?" before a monstrous transformation erupts. A towering demonic version of Kazuna slams into her, a guttural scream echoing as she's violently thrown back. The horror is absolute as the monster declares he'll slaughter everyone himself, boasting about his overflowing power. But while everyone else is paralyzed by fear, Wazoo just sighs. "Okay then," he says, stepping forward as the others realize he's finally snapped. The monster screams for him to stay out of it, but Wazoo has seen enough. "Of course I would stop you," he declares, launching a punch so powerful it doesn't just hit, it shatters the atmosphere. Impact is bone-crushing. As the monster is sent flying, he screams that Sorona's life is none of Wazoo's business. But Wazoo's expression is dead serious. This isn't just a fight anymore, it's personal. Then comes the finishing blow. With a roar that shakes the earth, Wazoo pours every ounce of his emotion into one final strike. "Like Sorona-san!" The confession hits harder than the punch, obliterating the villain's face. The dust settles, and suddenly the adrenaline vanishes, replaced by pure unfiltered panic. Wazoo realizes he just screamed his feelings for the whole world to hear. As he spirals into an internal crisis about what face to make, Sorona approaches him, blushing and breathless. The tension shifts from battle to romance as Sorona admits she's happy about his feelings. but the moment is bittersweet. As a guardian, she's bound to her village and can never leave. Wazoo doesn't hesitate for a second. If she can't leave, then he'll simply stay. Rona's words hit hard, but Wazoo isn't staying down. Seeing the pain on her face, he makes a silent vow. A man's true purpose is to protect the smile of the woman he loves. With his little dragon companion perched on his head, Wazoo makes a break for it. He needs to get away, as far away from here as humanly possible. But peace is short-lived when Mir bursts in with enough energy to wake the dead. The whole town is buzzing about a gallant figure who crushed an A-rank party, and she's convinced Wazoo is the hero of the hour. While the world starts praising his achievements, Wazoo is having a total internal meltdown. He knows the truth. Mir is the one stealing all the spotlight and the glory. Mir is fully leaning into the wandering hero fantasy, treating Wazoo like a legend while he's just confused. But there's a goal. He needs to hit the guild to get his card reissued, and apparently, the guild master is dying to meet him. Just as he's preparing to leave, a new player enters the game. Meet Emma, the guild's receptionist, and Wazoo's brain practically short-circuits the moment he sees her beauty. Emma isn't just beautiful, she's aggressive. She insists on helping Wazoo change his clothes, and when he frantically tries to refuse, she proves she's very good at it by starting to strip her own clothes. Wazoo's world collapses into a scream of "No!" Emma launches into a point-blank story about her husband's excitement. It's a whirlwind of passion and dragonfire that leaves Wazoo completely shell-shocked. First thing in the morning, and Wazoo is already mentally defeated by the MILF energy of a married woman. But there's no turning back now. They've arrived at the massive Linux City Adventurers Guild. The journey to the top floor is a struggle in more ways than one. While Emma wheezes from the climb, she warns him not to stare at her hips, which of course, makes it impossible for Wazoo not to be tempted. Wazoo and his companion step into the office, only to be met by a massive, imposing silhouette. The man reveals himself as the guild master of Linux City, and it seems he's been expecting Wazoo's arrival. The silhouette vanishes to reveal a stern, bald man with a scar across his face. Reagan, he introduces himself, leaving Wazoo completely stunned. After thanking the receptionist, Reagan gets straight to the point, expressing his deep gratitude to Wazoo for saving his wife, Kayla, and his daughter, Lula. Wazoo's brain practically shuts down as he processes the family connection. Then comes the emotional whiplash. Wazoo has a full-blown meltdown, unable to accept that a bald old goat could have such a beautiful wife and daughter. While Reagan defends his marriage with passion, Wazoo is left spiraling in a pit of single-man jealousy. Reagan cuts through the noise, questioning why an F-rank adventurer is so bold, but he's not here to argue. He offers Wazoo a high-stakes replacement quest, knowing that despite his rank, Wazoo possesses the terrifying power to crush an A-rank party without a scratch. The mission is simple but dangerous. A dragon-like creature has been spotted on a nearby hill. Reagan wants Wazoo to investigate and subjugate it, and Wazoo, lured by the thrill of danger, eagerly accepts. The real hook? A reward of 30 gold coins. Wazoo's eyes practically turn into money signs, and he confidently declares that he can just one-punch the dragon away. All he needs is a map. Wazoo makes a hasty exit, tossing a final Mr. Balding over his shoulder, which sends Reagan into a shouting fit about his shaved head. Even as he leaves, Reagan can't help but wonder if the one-punch claim is actually possible. Now a local celebrity known as the Dragon Tamer, Wazoo makes a quick stop at the inn. Kayla greets him with a laugh and some sandwiches, though she's surprised he only just realized her husband is the guild master. Just as Wazoo is lamenting the fact that the kind Kyla is already taken, the peace is shattered. Out of nowhere, a mysterious hooded figure lunges at him, clinging to him with a sudden, startling force. Action starts fast as Wazoo grabs a mysterious hooded girl, urgently guiding her away from danger. "This way, then let's hide," he whispers, successfully vanishing her from sight. Meanwhile, the thugs chasing her are left fuming, convinced she has nowhere to run but back to her mansion. Hiding in the shadows, Wazoo admits he's getting bad vibes from those guys, but he keeps his cool. He introduces himself with a bright, friendly grin. The friendly neighborhood adventurer, while the girl is completely floored by his charm. As she whispers Wazoo-sama to herself, he can't help but think her name is absolutely lovely. With a shy, blushing gaze, she finally reveals her identity. "Tata, just Tata," she softly admits. The air between them thickens with a sudden, sweet tension as Wazoo looks on, clearly captivated. Tata is baffled by Wazoo's lack of gear, wondering how someone so lightly equipped can be so strong. Wazoo just laughs it off, mentioning he's heading out on a dragon-slaying quest. Confused and touched, Tata asks the one question that stops him in his tracks. Why would a stranger go this far for her? Wazoo's answer is simple and devastatingly kind. He just couldn't leave someone with such a lonely expression on their face. It's a line that hits Tata right in the heart. With a final promise to return as soon as possible, he prepares to head back into the wild. A cheerful "see you later, Tata-san," marks their parting. leaving the girl wondering what kind of strange, wonderful person Wazoo actually is. But before he can even leave the city, a familiar voice calls out. It's Orlando, the armored guard, who looks like he's seen a ghost. Orlando practically panics when he hears Wazoo is going dragon slaying without a proper sword or spear. He warns him that fighting a dragon alone is basically courting death. But Wazoo doesn't stick around for the lecture. He dashes off in a blur, leaving Orlando praying that he actually comes back alive. Now on the road with Mir, Wazoo studies his map, searching for a specific hill by a big lake. The journey is lighthearted until lunchtime when Mir starts playing a prank, appearing and disappearing in the blink of an eye. Wazoo is left staring at empty air, completely bewildered. Wait, Mir has a storage ability? Wazoo is absolutely floored, realizing his fluffy companion can store and retrieve items instantly. Overwhelmed by the cuteness and utility, he hugs Mir tight, jokingly wondering if this amazing fluffball might actually be his future bride. As the day winds down, the world opens up into a breathtaking vista. Wazoo stops in his tracks, completely awestruck by the magnificent sunset painting the sky. It's a moment of pure peace before the next great challenge begins. The world is vast, almost overwhelmingly so, and as the wind howls across the plains, a lonely heart searches for one thing, a friend who will stay forever. Wazoo arrives at a designated hill, searching for a dragon, but all he finds is a dark, silent cave. Just as he calls out into the void, two glowing eyes snap open in the darkness, signaling that he is definitely not alone. With an explosive roar, a massive white dragon bursts forth, her voice booming that this meeting was Wazoo's own request. Wazoo can barely process the shock as he realizes this powerhouse is actually Mir's mother. Panic sets in as Wazoo desperately tries to calm the raging dragon, calling her Melson. He's caught in the middle of a storm, wondering if a fight with her husband Ragnir is the cause of this chaos. Melson isn't just annoyed, she's absolutely livid, screaming that this is far worse than a mere fight, and that she's leaving her husband for good. Wazoo can only sweat drop, realizing he's walked right into a domestic disaster. The rage subsides, a heavy silence falls. Melson begins to open up about the drudgery of her life at home, and Wazoo, ever the gentleman, offers his ear to her sorrows. Then comes the bombshell. Ragnir cheated on her with a young red dragon. Wazoo's brain practically shuts down in shock, his mind racing with indignation on behalf of the beautiful Melson. Determined to fix this mess, Wazoo suggests it might all be one big misunderstanding and offers to bring Ragnir here to settle things. Though hesitant, Melson finds herself unable to refuse Wazoo's earnest request. Leaving Mir in Melson's care, Wazoo vanishes in a blur of incredible speed, leaving a trail of dust behind. As he disappears, Melson can't help but admire the kindness of a man who refuses to leave anyone in trouble. In no time at all, Wazoo reaches a towering mountain castle and calls out for Ragnir. Stepping inside the grand halls, he finds the target of Melson's wrath, a massive dragon lounging in a state of complete oblivion. Wazoo finds the Dragon King, Ragnir, in a state of absolute despair. The mighty king is having a total meltdown because his wife, Mel, has vanished after a massive fight. Ragnir claims he's innocent, explaining that a female dragon named Carol made advances during a meal. But Mel witnessed the scene and stormed out, leaving Ragnir completely clueless as to why he should even apologize. Wazoo has had enough of the excuses and goes full relationship coach. He hits Ragnir with a brutal hypothetical. How would he feel if Mel got intimate with a young male dragon? The Dragon King's brain practically shuts down from the shock. The light bulb finally goes off. Ragnir realizes he'd be furious if the roles were reversed, and he finally accepts that he's the one in the wrong. Now, Wazoo is determined to get him back to Mel for a proper apology. After a quick apology to Wazoo, the conversation takes a sharp turn toward romance. Ragnir asks about Wazoo's harem, leaving Wazoo feeling a sudden, bitter sting of loneliness. Wazoo decides that flying is way too slow for this mission. With a manic grin, he grabs the massive Dragon King, preparing to use him as a projectile for the fastest delivery possible. Wait! Wazoo launches Ragnir into the sky like a missile. With the Dragon King airborne, Wazoo sprints off at breakneck speed, desperate to reach Mel before the package arrives. Wazoo arrives to find Mel and Mir, but he's immediately dwarfed by a new, imposing presence, a magnificent white dragon. As Ragnir crashes into the scene, he realizes he's facing someone far more terrifying than his wife. Meet McGill, Mel's mother and the ultimate authority. While Ragnir trembles in fear, McGill is far more interested in Wazoo, noting that his strength is beyond anything she expected. The former Dragon Queen makes a power move, casually suggesting that Wazoo marry Mir in the future. While Ragnir is left reeling from the mother-in-law comment, McGill's overwhelming aura forces the Dragon King to his knees in an instant. Things are getting awkward fast. Wazoo is desperately trying to smooth over a cheating incident, feeling bad for the pitiful state of Ragnir. But the dragon's attempts to apologize have only made things worse, as he keeps blaming everything on Wazoo. After being called selfish by a frustrated bystander, Wazoo finally gets some one-on-one time with Ragnir. The dragon tries to give him some manly advice about dealing with a woman's whims, but Wazoo's response is a blunt, honest confession. He has absolutely no experience with that. The conversation turns to the classic move of treating a partner to a fancy restaurant. Wazoo is all for it, but then reality hits. How on earth do you find a high-class restaurant that can actually fit a humongous dragon? As the dragon mother, Mel, checks in on them, Ragnir offers a sincere apology for the trouble he's caused. Meanwhile, Wazoo is already plotting his escape, thinking the best way to handle the situation is to create some distance by introducing the female dragon to other males. Looking to make amends and deepen his relationship with Mel, Ragnir proposes a trip to a human town called Linux. He promises a place where they can rest their bodies and enjoy delicious food, leaving Mel completely touched by her husband's sudden thoughtfulness. The group is excited for the trip, but Wazoo can't help but point out the obvious flaw in the plan. He looks at the massive dragons and asks the million-dollar question. How exactly are they planning to enter a human town in those sizes? The answer is simpler than Wazoo expected. The dragon explains that because of their immense mana, looking like a human is no trouble at all. Before Wazoo can even process the news, a blinding flash of light signals a massive transformation. Wazoo's brain practically shuts down at the result. They've become stunningly attractive humans. As the elegant pair tells him to lead the way to Linux, Wazoo can't help but feel a bit bad for Mir, the only one who didn't get a human glow-up. Far away from the chaos, a blonde elf-like woman sits in lonely silence, gazing over the horizon. It's been 10 days since she left her village, and her heart is heavy with a single, desperate question. Where in the world is Wazoo? She traces his possible path, worrying that he might have already sailed to another continent. Between his lack of a guild card and the vastness of the world, she's terrified he's stranded. Longing for the moment they can finally meet again. Lost in a romantic daydream, Sirona imagines a future of endless adventures and quiet nights by Wazoo's side. But the fantasy shatters instantly as a wave of panic hits. What if he's already found other comrades and built a harem without her? The doubt spirals deeper, leaving Sirona wondering if she even has the right to stand beside him or a place left in his heart. Just as she's drowning in her own anxiety, a cheerful voice cuts through the gloom. A girl named Lula has arrived. Lula is delivering fresh bread from a bakery her father loves, and the scent is absolutely irresistible. Starving and tempted, Sirona can't help but stare as Lula kindly offers her a taste. With a beaming, pure-hearted smile, Lula insists Sirona take the bread and invites her to stay at her family's place, the Breeze of Light Inn in Linux Town. Grateful for the kindness, Sirona finally introduces herself. As they walk, Sirona reveals the true purpose of her journey. She's searching for a certain man. Lula is immediately eager to help, mentioning that she's also heading toward Linux and knows plenty of people who visit her inn. Sirona describes him as kind, cheerful, and incredibly strong, though a bit aloof. Then, her face flushes a deep red as she admits the one thing she can't ignore, that he's actually really cute. He gives the final clues. A tall man with long black hair, a worn-out black robe, and a small dragon resting on his head. Lula's eyes light up with recognition. She knows exactly who that is, and he's currently staying at her inn. It's a miracle! Sirona is practically collapsing from the shock and joy of finding a lead. Lula is stunned to learn that Sirona didn't use magic or fast travel skills to get here. She walked all the way from the elven village just for Wazoo's sake. Lula can't help but tease her, pointing out just how much Sirona must love him. While she frantically denies it, Sirona's mind drifts back to her fear. Could he have already found a new partner? Lula explains that while Wazoo is currently traveling for a job, he's always welcome at the inn, and so is Sirona. As they head toward the city, Sirona is left with a racing heart, wondering if he'll truly accept her when they finally meet. Imagine the tension, holding hands and dreaming of a future where it's just the two of them on an adventure. For this blonde elf, the mere thought makes her heart race with a thunderous badump. But the dream is interrupted when her companion Lula spots a familiar figure in the distance. One look at the man and the question is immediate. Is that really Wazoo-san? The shock hits hard. Wazoo isn't alone. He's surrounded by a group of imposing, powerful-looking strangers, leaving the elf girl completely bewildered. She tries to play it cool, telling herself it's only natural for someone as kind and reliable as Wazoo to attract new friends. But inside, the mood is shifting. Lula urges her to go to him, but panic takes over. In a sudden burst of social anxiety, she makes a clumsy excuse, shoves his guild card onto Lula, and bolts in the opposite direction. Left in the dust, Lula is baffled by the sudden disappearance. Meanwhile, the elf girl is leaning against a tree, breathless and cursing herself. Why on earth did she just run away? It should have been so simple. Just walk up, apologize, and ask to join his group. Instead, she's left wondering why she felt the need to act like such a jerk. The memory of Wazoo's gentle, smiling face only makes the frustration worse. She's caught in a whirlwind of loneliness and confusion, unable to understand her own reaction. Then she feels it, a strange, tightening pain deep inside her chest. She clutches her heart, completely lost as to what this sensation actually is. And then, the realization finally hits. Before she even knew it, she had already fallen completely for Wazu-san. The bald man just can't wrap his head around it. Is he seriously expected to believe that this group is the legendary Dragon King and his family? Wazu tries to play it cool, but the Dragon King's wife has had enough of the doubt. With a sharp command, she tells her foolish husband to drop the act and transform to prove their identity once and for all. One thump is all it takes to shatter any remaining doubt. A colossal, terrifying dragon suddenly looms over the room, sending the bald man into a complete panic as he screams for them to change back immediately. Meanwhile, Wazu just stands there, totally unfazed, wondering if his mission is finally over. With the chaos settled, Wazu's mind shifts immediately to the important things, like where to find the best food in town. He reminds Reigen-san about the promised rewards and a new guild card, leading to an agreement that Reigen-san will personally guide them through the city. The group heads off to spend the night at the Breeze of Light Inn. Just as things are calming down, Lula arrives with a surprise, a guild card delivered by a girl named Sorona. The moment Wazu hears the name, his expression shifts. He stares at the card, his mind racing with one question: is Sorona actually here in this city? For the Dragon King's daughter, the human town is like a wonderland filled with things she's never imagined. She's absolutely captivated by everything, especially a pair of beautiful shoes that she desperately wants, even if they might not fit her original size. Her mother watches with a smile, enjoying the simple pleasure of exploring together. The group decides to spice things up with a visit to a shooting range, and the Dragon King's wife turns out to be a natural. She clears the targets with effortless precision, leaving the others in absolute awe. Inspired by her cool performance, her daughter eagerly steps up to try her luck, unaware of what's coming. It turns out the talent didn't pass down to the daughter. Her attempts are a disaster of loud bangs and complete misses. She's left devastated by her failure, though the kind shopkeeper offers a consolation prize to cheer her up. As they leave the range, they wander into the bustling energy of the entertainment district. A grand, impressive building catches their eye, and the guide quickly tries to brush it off as just a house, to avoid any awkwardness. But in her head she knows the truth. It's the most prestigious brothel in town. The irony isn't lost on the group, especially since the Dragon King's history of cheating has already made his wife's temper a dangerous thing. Dinner time arrives, and the Dragon King goes absolutely wild with the menu, ordering a mountain of meat and side dishes. While Wazu questions the sheer volume of food, the conversation turns to a more strategic goal: finding the perfect outfit to make Melsan's heart flutter. Wazu puts all his trust in Reigen-san's fashion sense for this critical mission. As the night winds down, Wazu bids the group farewell, teasing the Dragon King for relying too much on others after upsetting his wife. But before he leaves, Reigen-san gives him a final reminder. Tomorrow is the day to officially re-register his guild card. With his card back in hand, Wazu looks toward the next day with a quiet determination. Just as Wazu is lost in thought, a familiar voice cuts through the air, teasing him relentlessly about his obsession with Sorona-san. He freezes in shock. Could it really be the goddess appearing before him? As they chat, Wazu mentions the new friends he's made, while privately realizing that Sorona's heartbreak was based on a total misunderstanding. Meanwhile, in the background, someone is happily munching away, completely oblivious to the conversation. To the Dragon King and his family, who are absolutely demolishing a feast with legendary appetite. While the Dragon King demands more meat, the restaurant staff can only sweat in terror, dreading the astronomical bill to come. Tensions melt away as Mel forgives her husband, though she delivers a sharp warning. If he's caught drinking with another female dragon, there will be hell to pay. The drama ends in a passionate embrace and declarations of love. The next day brings a brutal reality check. Wazu nearly has a meltdown when he discovers his 30 gold coin reward has shrunk to a measly 5. The guild receptionist drops the bombshell. The Dragon King's lavish feast and hotel stay were deducted straight from his pay. But there's a silver lining. Wazu's guild rank has skyrocketed from F to C in a single leap. The receptionist admits he's stupidly strong, noting that anyone who can talk to the Dragon King as an equal deserves the promotion. Before he leaves, the receptionist mentions that the guild master wants to take him to a nice place tonight as a reward. Wazu heads home, where he's greeted with a warm welcome by the woman who considers him their live-in bodyguard. After arranging for Mir's care, Wazu catches sight of the Dragon King's family lounging in absolute luxury. The realization hits him like a ton of bricks. This is the freaking inn that drained his entire paycheck. Mel expresses her gratitude to Wazu for covering their expenses, calling him a man who would never cheat on his loved ones. As Wazu says his goodbyes, Mir is left behind with a heartbroken expression, clearly not wanting him to go. Wazoo is whisked away in a carriage by Reagan-san toward the entertainment district. Just as he's wondering what's happening, Reagan makes a bold offer, introducing him to a few girls to spend the night with. Wazoo's brain practically shuts down in shock. Reagan is not taking no for an answer, relentlessly pushing Wazoo toward the town's most prestigious brothel. Wazoo tries to fight it off, but Reagan hits him where it hurts, questioning if he's still a cherry boy at 17 years old. The duo arrives at the lavish establishment, where they are greeted by a sharp-dressed man. This is Garrett, the owner, who seems more than ready for their visit. Garrett doesn't just see a random youth. He knows the rumors of the man who fought an A-ranked party and speaks with the Dragon King as an equal. With a welcoming smile, he leads the bewildered Wazoo inside, promising a very special seat. The atmosphere turns electric, as Garrett offers Wazoo a free pick of any girl in the house. While the women find his flustered reactions absolutely adorable, Wazoo is spiraling into a panic, unable to handle the sudden attention. Then the room goes silent as Garrett introduces his most beautiful flower. The moment Wazoo sees her, the shock hits him like a physical blow. He recognizes her from a long time ago. Woman, Tata, beams with a smile, thrilled that Wazoo remembers her after he saved her from trouble during a shopping trip. Garrett is stunned. It's rare for Tata to show such genuine interest in any customer. Tata doesn't stop at a simple greeting, hinting that she wants their relationship to become something far more intimate. Overwhelmed by the bold advance, Wazoo's brain practically shuts down, and he starts chugging liquor just to survive the tension. While Garrett and Tata discuss the strategic value of connecting with such a powerful adventurer, Wazoo reaches his limit. One final gulp, a sudden spray of alcohol, and he collapses with a massive thud. Waking up in a haze, Wazoo's first sensation is something incredibly soft beneath him. He opens his eyes to find Tata leaning over him in a bed, leaving him completely frozen in shock. Panic sets in as Wazoo frantically apologizes. But Tata calmly explains that he simply fainted from the drink. He's now in her private room, and in a twist of fate, Reagan has already vanished, leaving him alone with her. The atmosphere shifts instantly as Tata becomes unexpectedly bold, leaving Wazoo completely blindsided by her sudden change in demeanor. His brain practically shuts down as he watches her move, with a confidence that leaves him speechless. Then comes the move that freezes him in place. Tata leans in close, offering him anything he desires. Wazoo's heart is hammering against his ribs, his panic reaching a fever pitch as the situation spirals far beyond his control. Flustered and overwhelmed, Wazoo desperately tries to slow things down, wondering if they're moving way too fast. But Tata completely misreads the room, wondering if he's simply not interested in women at all. Instead of taking the bait, Wazoo delivers a stern lecture, telling Tata she needs to value her own body more. The sudden shift from tension to a moral lesson catches her off guard, leaving her giggling at his unexpected purity. Tata finds herself fascinated by this strange, kind man who is unlike any customer she's ever known. With a soft smile, she admits the truth, that she had actually tried to trick him. The truth comes out. Tata witnessed Wazoo's overwhelming strength in battle and hoped he could lend that power to her. As she speaks, Wazoo realizes that the situation she's in is far more serious than he first imagined. When Tata tries to offer a reward, Wazoo brushes it off with a gentle smile. He doesn't want money or favors. He simply can't stand to see someone with such a lonely expression left all alone. By his sincerity, Tata is left blushing and breathless, feeling as though Wazoo can see right through her. In the quiet of the night, Wazoo asks her to finally share the story of her past. The story is a heartbreaking one. Tata is working in this place to pay off her father's debts, having been forcibly taken by ruthless collectors. She had placed all her desperate hopes on Wazoo's strength to save her. Wazoo's solution is simple and direct. He'll just go have a talk with the creditor. But Tata panics, terrified that if he picks a fight with the wrong people, he'll be forced to leave the city forever. A desperate determination flickers in the woman's eyes as she makes a solemn vow to pay off her father's debts and reclaim her freedom. But knowing the odds are against her, she turns to the man with a heartbreaking plea. Please, protect me. Wazoo doesn't hesitate, meeting her gaze with a warm, reassuring smile. He promises that no matter where she is, he'll come flying to her rescue, vowing to support her determination with everything he has. The tension melts into a sweet moment of gratitude. But the conversation takes a sudden, unexpected turn. When the topic of his goals comes up, the woman asks a question that leaves Wazoo completely bewildered. Is he planning to build a harem? She playfully teases him, even offering to be the first member of his harem before suddenly playing the dirty woman card to test him. Wazoo's reaction is instant and explosive, vehemently denying it and proving just how genuinely kind he is. With the awkwardness gone, the two share a cozy moment, agreeing to explore the city of Linux together. Wazoo happily agrees to show her all the best restaurants and scenic spots the city has to offer. Morning arrives with the sound of chirping birds. But as the woman wakes up, a sudden realization hits her. She gasps, blushing furiously as she looks around the room. She actually spent the night with him. Looking at Wazoo sleeping peacefully beside her, her heart swells with a strange emotion. He really didn't do anything to her, and that simple act of respect means more than she can put into words. Then comes the scolding that hits her right in the heart. Wazoo's voice is stern as he tells her she needs to value her own body more, leaving her overwhelmed by the feeling of finally meeting someone who truly cares for her. Overwhelmed by a kindness she's never known, she lets out a silent, emotional scream of joy. Meanwhile, Wazoo finally wakes up to an empty bed, finding only a business card left behind as a trace of her presence. Just as Wazoo is reflecting on the sweet note she left, the peace is shattered. A fiery beast girl storms in, screaming at the mess head not to get arrogant just because he spent one night with Tada One-sama. The tension is through the roof as a fiery cat girl lets Wazoo have it, calling him a nobody and a random stranger. She's absolutely not having it, insisting that her One-sama would never give someone like him the time of day. One swift kick and Wazoo is sent flying right out the door. As she watches him go, the cat girl remains unconvinced of his strength, firmly believing that she is the only one capable of protecting her precious One-sama from the world. Even the little dragon Mir is catching the mood, getting completely jealous over Wazoo's recent outings. To make amends, Wazoo promises a delicious treat, mentioning that a woman named Tata-san showed him all the best spots in the city. Talk about perfect timing. Wazoo runs straight into the stunning Tata-san, who is thrilled to see him again. While Wazoo awkwardly explains he's on a date with Mir, Tata-san introduces the grumpy cat girl as her bodyguard, Nenya. Wanya's hostility doesn't stop, but she finds a new target, the adorable Mir. After manipulating Tata-san into letting her play with the dragon, she leaves Wazoo with the ultimate insult, telling him to be a man and shut up, while he's stuck carrying all their bags. With Nenya out of the way, the air suddenly feels a lot lighter. Tata-san leads Wazoo through the city, planning a shopping spree for cosmetics and clothes, and some special accessories for the other girls back at the mansion. They step into a quaint jewelry store, where Tata-san's eyes light up at the beautiful displays. She wants to find something truly special to show her gratitude to the people in her life, completely absorbed in the sparkling treasures. The peaceful mood is shattered in an instant. Waz catches a glimpse of something sinister lurking in the shadows, and his protective instincts kick in. He tells Tata-san to stay inside, his expression turning dead serious. Wazoo steps out to face a group of thugs who reveal themselves as debt collectors. They've got a disgusting plan to take Tata-san as payment, laughing off Wazoo as if he's just another obstacle in their way. They expected a fight, but they got a landslide. With one overwhelming blow, Wazoo sends the leader crashing through the scenery, leaving the rest of the gang in absolute shock. As the dust settles, Wazoo can only let out a tired sigh. One explosive move and it's over. Wazoosh stands amidst the wreckage of his enemies, looking less like a victor and more like a man who just dealt with a tedious chore. He can't help but wonder if the rumors of his own strength are actually true, given how effortless this was. Suddenly, Nenya appears, clutching the little dragon Mir in her arms. She admits that was far stronger than she anticipated, revealing that this entire fight was actually a test to see if he was trustworthy enough to protect her One-sama. Nenya confesses she was ready to step in if things got dangerous, but Wazoo's dominance left her speechless. Now that he's proven himself, she decides it's time to reveal a dark secret. The truth behind a crushing debt. The truth is a nightmare. With a look of pure rage, Nenya says that the debt is a complete lie concocted by the city's lord just to torment a family and claim a woman's body as collateral. Wazoo's face twists in shock. He's just realized the level of scum he's dealing with. The scene shifts as Wazoo walks through the city, eventually coming face to face with the woman in question. Tata-san looks at him with a mixture of surprise and longing, breathless as she calls out his name. Wenya wastes no time asserting Wazoo's new role as Tata-san's bodyguard, insisting she should never be left alone again. But then she decides to show off Tata-san's charms to Wazoo, leaving the poor guy completely flustered and frozen. Driven by a sudden surge of protectiveness, Wazoo grabs her hands and declares with absolute passion that she never has to worry again. Now that he's by her side, he'll be her shield, leaving Tata-san stunned by his intensity. Tata-san is deeply moved, but a new voice cuts in, the goddess herself. She reveals that while Nenya's story was true, Tata-san is still hiding a much deeper, more painful part of the tragedy. The full horror is unveiled. Tata-san's parents suffered in poverty to pay a fake debt, and Tata-san herself went to the ultimate extreme, selling her own body to protect them. Meanwhile, Nenya and her allies Galit and Ryagan are desperately hunting for proof to expose the Lord's lies. With the Lord sending mercenaries to claim her, Wazoo's resolve is set. He's going to beat the man into the ground. But for now, The tension melts into sweetness as a shopkeeper teases the pair, noting that they look exactly like a couple shopping for souvenirs. Mood shifts instantly when a shopkeeper points them toward the goods for couples, sending Tata-san into a complete blushing panic. Wazoo just laughs it off, but then she asks the one question that makes the air feel heavy. Would she look like a normal girl if she held his hand? Wazoo's response is simple and devastatingly sweet. He tells her she already does. Wazoo doesn't stop there, doubling down by telling her she's far more beautiful than any normal girl. His oblivious charm leaves Tata-san completely short-circuited, her mind racing as she struggles to find words while her heart takes over. But beneath the sweetness a dark memory surfaces. A glimpse into a painful past reveals a version of her that felt broken and discarded, lost in a world of coldness and despair. She had believed her heart had died the moment she started selling her body. But in this instant, it feels as if a flower has finally bloomed. Looking at Wazoo, she can't help but think how truly beautiful he is. Back in the present, the pair discovers a set of rings engraved with ancient letters. Wazoo reads the inscription on the man's ring, "I hold you dear," and begins to reveal what is written on the woman's. The words are simple yet piercing. "I look only at you." As the romantic weight of the phrase sinks in, Wazoo is hit by a wave of self-doubt, wondering if someone as tainted as he is even allowed to make such a wish. Driven by a heart beating faster than ever, Tata-san makes a bold move. With a face flushed red, she desperately asks Wazoo to put the ring on, leaving him completely stunned by her sudden intensity. By his side, she feels a sensation she's never known before. It's strange, but for the first time, she feels exactly like a normal girl deeply in love. Panicking, she tries to play it off as mere gratitude for his protection. But Wazoo has a practical concern. He fights barehanded and fears he might break the ring. He suggests she wear it instead whenever they meet, leading to a heartfelt promise between them. As they part ways, Tata-san is left reeling from her own boldness, feeling a mix of shame and happiness over their promise. Wazoo, ever the reliable guardian, simply smiles and tells her it's his job to protect her, leaving her with a warmth she never thought possible. Wazoo bids a cheerful farewell to Tata-san, thanking her for a ring, but the gesture sends shockwaves through his companions. Mir is completely lava-struck, while Nenya's suspicious questioning sends Wazoo into a total panic, as he desperately tries to deny any romantic implications. While the peace doesn't last long, Mir suddenly snaps, launching a ferocious attack of bites on Wazoo. Even as he reminds her that he's practically indestructible, the chaos escalates until Megal has to step in before they literally tear the inn apart. Enter the overprotective father. Ragnar is absolutely livid that Wazoo exchanged rings with another girl, calling him an idiot son-in-law and threatening him with a punch to the face. While Megal tries to play peacemaker, her warning is clear. If Wazoo is lying, there will be hell to pay. Hoping to smooth things over, Wazoo presents Mir with a thoughtful souvenir. Despite her earlier threats to summon every dragon in existence to punish him, the gift hits home, turning the fierce dragon girl into a sobbing mess of pure happiness. The hug is the final blow to Ragnar's composure. Seeing his daughter cry tears of joy for Wazoo, something she never did for him, sends the father into a spiral of jealousy and shock. He's convinced they're about to sleep together, and once again, Wazoo becomes the target of his absolute fury. Wazoo wakes up sore and sprawled across the floor, a victim of his own restless sleeping. But before he can even rub the sleep from his eyes, a frantic woman bursts into the room, her urgency signaling that a new problem has arrived. The awkward encounter leads to a sudden shift in power. Flustered by the situation, the woman quickly pivots to a stern ultimatum: social death or a grueling quest. Wazoo, choosing the lesser of two evils, finds himself facing a new challenge: the poison swamp. The mission is clear. A mysterious poison swamp is encroaching on the town of Linux. While the guild is desperate for poison-resistant adventurers, Wazoo casually reveals his secret weapon, a status screen proving that poison simply doesn't work on him. With the quest officially assigned, Wazoo prepares to head out. He insists on going alone to protect Mir from the toxic fumes, leaving her behind with a gentle request to be a good girl. As he looks at the hazy horizon, he finally realizes the cause of the strange weather. Despite Wazoo's confidence, Mir and Ragnar aren't convinced this is a simple scouting mission. In a surprising turn of events, the stubborn Ragnar demands to join the fight, insisting that even a powerhouse like Wazoo should learn to depend on others. While screaming in outrage at the mere suggestion that he might be weak, the Dragon King is ready for a change of pace, declaring his desire to go on an adventure with Wazoo. Despite a jab about looking like a useless father in his current form, the massive beast agrees to fly them to their destination in an instant. With a powerful flap of wings, they take to the skies. Wazoo calls out a final farewell to Mir and the others as they vanish into the horizon, leaving the city far behind. Meanwhile, a chilling atmosphere settles over the land as a mother and daughter sense a truly evil presence approaching. Elsewhere, a group of bitter adventurers seethes with jealousy, cursing the low-ranked bastard who has somehow managed to outshine them. The disgruntled adventurers speculate about a legendary red orb and rumors of a dragon tamer, wondering how a plain-looking guy could achieve such feats. Suddenly, a mysterious hooded figure emerges from the shadows, claiming to be a merchant with the very power they crave. The hooded stranger plays on their greed, offering a discount on the red orb. With a dramatic reveal, he claims this artifact can grant them strength enough to defeat even the Dragon King himself. After securing his mark, the mysterious merchant asks for directions to the city lord's mansion. As he departs, a black-haired woman watches with a knowing, enigmatic grin. The scene shifts to the skies, where Wazoo is greeted by a sight of pure devastation. A massive dark cloud of miasma chokes the forest below, and even from high above, the smell is absolutely revolting. Wazoo and Ragnar discuss the poisonous purple haze corrupting the land. While Ragnar worries that burning the forest to stop the poison would create a wasteland, Wazoo remains unnervingly calm, focusing only on finding the source. To get a better look at Wazoo's capabilities, Ragnar shifts into his human form. As they trek through the toxic air, Ragnar begins to struggle, but Wazoo is completely unfazed, claiming the deadly miasma actually smells like fresh citrus fruit. Done by this inhuman adaptability, Ragnar asks where such overwhelming power comes from. Wazoo reflects on his brush with death and the mysterious help he received, realizing that his strength was born from one simple, desperate wish. He just didn't want to die. Imagine surviving the world's deadliest mountain by eating random bones and weird mushrooms? That's exactly how Wazoo did it, and even a centuries-old being like Ragnar is completely floored by this insane survival story. Ragnar sees something in Wazoo that the young man doesn't, a natural power to draw people toward him. It's a rare moment of reflection, leading Wazoo to a very sensible conclusion. Maybe he should stop eating dangerous things. But the peace doesn't last. The air turns toxic as a thick miasma surges, and something sinister begins to crawl out of the poison swamp. A screeching nightmare emerges, dripping with fluid so corrosive they melt the very land. Ragnar's warning is clear. One single drop and Wazoo is a goner. While Ragnar is panicking about the untouchable monster, Wazoo is just curious. Before anyone can stop him, he lunges straight into the danger, determined to try something reckless. And then, bam! With one devastating blow, the untouchable monster is completely obliterated. Ragnar's brain practically shuts down. He can't believe the fight ended that quickly. Wazoo, this was just a small fry encounter. But as the dust settles, he finds a mysterious red marble, sparking a memory of someone else who possessed one. The marble shatters instantly, leaving them to deal with the remaining poison swamp. Wazoo recalls a strategy involving barriers and fire, wondering if that's what Ragnar had in mind. Then, Wazoo does the unthinkable. Instead of burning the poison, he starts drinking it? While Ragnar screams in absolute horror, Wazoo is just enjoying the sweet and sour citrus taste. The result? Wazoo literally drinks the swamp dry, leaving Ragnar staring in disbelief at his companion's now massive bloated stomach. Mission accomplished, in the weirdest way possible. Wazoo is blissfully satisfied after his meal, completely oblivious to the fact that his companion is practically having a heart attack from worry. Just as the tension settles, a mysterious light begins to emanate from the ground beneath them. Suddenly, the man is swept up in a blinding warm radiance that lifts him off his feet. As he floats in the light, a mysterious voice whispers a heartfelt thank you to a kind adventurer, leaving him utterly bewildered. Back on solid ground, the man finds Wazoo collapsed and exhausted. He notices the massive bulge in Wazoo's stomach has vanished, realizing that Wazoo just did something absolutely outrageous to solve their problem. High above the mountains, a dragon watches over them. It reflects on Wazoo's absurd power and his genuine soft-hearted nature, finally deciding to truly acknowledge the man its daughter has chosen. With a booming declaration, the dragon vows to be Wazoo's best bud forever and lend him its strength whenever needed. Meanwhile, the companion is overjoyed, amazed that Wazoo cleared the poison swamp without burning the entire forest down. Now recovering in bed, Wazoo looks pale and sluggish, admitting to a lingering stomachache from his ordeal. As they talk, it becomes clear that Wazoo's actions saved Linnock Town from disaster, and he's already becoming well known among the locals. Conversation turns serious as the man reveals they finally have enough evidence to take down the corrupt city lord. To ensure Tata-san's safety before the legal battle begins, he asks Wazoo to stay by her side tonight. But Wazoo's peace is short-lived. He's feeling mysteriously sick and questioning the goddess of Mother Earth about his condition. Suddenly, another woman bursts in, clutching a guild card and accusing him of bringing another woman into their love nest. It turns out she's another goddess, so moved by Wazoo's selfless act of saving the forest that she's come to offer her divine protection. Wazoo, completely overwhelmed by the sudden intensity of her gratitude, can only scream for her to stop. While checking his status card, Wazoo finds his stats have skyrocketed to planet-destroying levels. But there's a catch: his human purity has dropped yet again, leaving him to wonder why he can't just have a normal life. Wait, is he actually leveling up? A mysterious hooded figure tells Wazoo his sickness is just growing pains. But the moment they bump into each other, the mood shifts. He's so pale he looks like a ghost. The stranger offers medicine, but Wazoo is too exhausted to care. He just wants to sleep, leaving the hooded figure to stare at him, with a look that says he's far more interesting than he realizes. With a quick introduction, the mysterious Shiro vanishes, leaving Wazoo completely baffled. He shakes it off and finally reaches the mansion, but the relief is short-lived. Barely through the door before he's swarmed by worried companions, but just as he tries to play it cool, his body gives out. One sudden thud and Wazoo is out cold. A panic erupts as they scream his name. But while they're fighting to wake him, a much larger shadow is falling over the entire city. Absolute carnage. From roaring ogres to winged demons, a nightmare horde has arrived, turning the peace into a bloodbath. And the mastermind? It's Shiro. She didn't get the exact result she wanted with her red orbs, but watching the city burn is enough to spice things up for her. While it is in total meltdown, a frantic report slams onto the desk. At least 1,000 goblins are marching straight for the borders of Linux. Wazoo finally wakes up to a dream scenario, a lap pillow from a woman who looks like a literal goddess. He's barely conscious, but his heart is racing for a completely different reason now. The existential crisis hits. Convinced he's no longer human, Wazoo goes full panic mode, begging the goddess to touch his face and confirm he's still normal. The tension is high, the blushing is real, and Wazoo has officially lost it. Just as Tada-san leans in, whispering how cute Wazoo is, the romantic tension is shattered by a massive slam. Nenya bursts through the door with water, acting like she wasn't worried, even though her tail is practically wagging herself into a frenzy. The city is buzzing with gratitude after Wazoo clears the poison swamp, but his modesty only fuels the mystery. While the locals wonder if a human is even capable of such strength, Wazoo is just thrilled that he actually comes off as a normal guy. Being his inner conflict, Tada-san gently holds him, offering the one thing he needs to hear. She tells him it's okay to be strong, because to her, he is truly undeniably human. Her belief in him is absolute, a promise that lasts from now until forever. But the tender moment is cut short when Nenya notices a suspicious amount of noise echoing from outside. Panic hits the room as Nenya delivers the news. A horde of over 1,000 goblins is raiding the capital. With the guild master and other prodigies already on the front lines, the city is staring down a catastrophe. The time for resting is over. Wazoo's expression hardens as he decides to move, but Tada-san clings to him, begging him not to overdo it. She doesn't want him to be a hero. She just wants him safe. Tears well up in Tada-san's eyes as she pleads for him to put his safety first. Wazoo gives her a confident smile, promising he won't die, before entrusting her care to a determined Nenya. With a casual wave and a promise to be right back, Wazoo heads toward the chaos. At the city walls, the atmosphere is grim, as soldiers brace themselves for the oncoming slaughter. It's absolute mayhem at the gates, while B-rank adventurers are itching to kick some goblin ass. The guards are terrified, knowing that opening the gates could let the horde annihilate the entire capital. Right in the middle of the panic, Wazoo strolls up with a casual yo to a stunned guard named Orlando. While the military is spiraling over the impossible numbers of the enemy, Wazoo is just wondering where all the goblins are. The weight of the world is crushing Orlando, who is spiraling into despair over his inability to protect the civilians in the capital. Just as he hits his breaking point, a familiar voice cuts through the tension. Wazoo has arrived, and he's taking the burden off Orlando's shoulders. Wazoo's plan's simple. He's going to thin the herd so the others can actually fight. Before Orlando can even ask how, Wazoo vanishes in a blur of sheer speed, leaving the knight screaming in total confusion as he disappears from sight. He doesn't just run. He launches himself like a human missile into the stratosphere. Orlando can only stare up in absolute shock as Wazoo breaks the sound barrier, soaring high above the battlefield. From the clouds, Wazoo gets a bird's-eye view of the nightmare below, an endless, suffocating sea of goblins. But instead of panic, a confident grin spreads across his face. It's time to drop in. Boom! Wazoo slams into the center of the horde like a meteor, triggering a massive explosion that sends goblins flying in every direction. When the dust settles, the scene is surreal. A colossal crater now splits the enemy army in two, and Wazoo is just standing there, casually wondering if he's taken out enough of them. With the path cleared, he cheerfully shouts for Orlando to open the gates. He's not even winded, waving a friendly goodbye as he tells the adventurers to handle the rest. The gates burst open, and the adventurers charge out with a roar. Emboldened by the opening Wazoo just carved for them, Orlando is practically beaming, his admiration for Wazoo reaching a fever pitch. A quick pat on the shoulder, and Wazoo is already moving on to find Regan and the others. Orlando can barely find the words to thank him before Wazoo vanishes again, leaving the battlefield to the remaining warriors. Meanwhile, the struggle is far from over for others. Garrett is hacking through the endless swarm in a desperate fight, while another warrior realizes that unless they locate and kill the Goblin King, this slaughter will never end. Wazoo drops in to help, but the situation is messier than it looks. While he wants to just wipe out the Goblin King, his companions warn that leaving the rest of the horde alive is a risk to nearby villages. Just as they're planning, a massive explosion rocks the area. Panic ensues as a messenger arrives with terrifying news. A demon has appeared at the north gate. The horror of demons is revealed. Humans who've lost themselves to overwhelming magic. A transformation with no way back. While Wazoo reflects on his own past, the warrior decides to charge toward the gate to end the threat. Meanwhile, Tata can't shake the worry for Wazoo and tries to rush out, despite her companion's insistence that he's too strong to fail. But in a heartbeat, a hidden predator strikes from the shadows. Tata is snatched away by a nightmare of a creature who claims her as his own. The beast woman is left reeling. How could something so dangerous sneak up on them without a trace? The monster cackles, boasting about the combined power of demons and goblins as he holds Tata hostage. But as he revels in his victory, he catches the gaze of a very angry Wazoo. Chaos erupts as the monsters breach the city walls, sending the citizens into a blind panic. Amidst the screams, the name Wazoo is whispered as the only hope left. With a massive beast by his side, Wazoo scans the battlefield. The moment he spots the enemy, he lets out a shout. He's found them. As the monsters roar, Wazoo pauses. There's something familiar about these creatures, something black that triggers a memory. One devastating punch sends a monster flying. Wazoo knows there's no cure for this curse, but he's determined to use every ounce of his strength to put their suffering to an end. With one devastating blow, Wazoo obliterates the enemy in a whirlwind of destruction. A single thunderous word echoes across the battlefield. Farewell! The survivors are left in absolute awe, whispering about the legendary dragon tamer who just saved them. When Wazoo casually reports that all the demons are gone, Reigen-san can barely process the sheer scale of his strength. Reigen-san admits that without Wazoo, the battle would be lost, leaving the young man beaming with the joy of being needed. But just as he's riding the high, a sudden cold intuition strikes. Something is terribly wrong. Wazoo finds Nenya in a state of total collapse, her voice trembling as she reveals a nightmare. Tata has been kidnapped by the city lord, who has transformed into a winged monster. Wazoo's heart sinks, consumed by the frustration of failing to protect her. The horror deepens as Reigen-san describes the scummy city lord's plan to force Tata into a marriage of misery and imprisonment. The villain's history of deception makes the situation feel like a ticking time bomb. Through a heartbreaking memory, Nenya reveals the scars of her own past, having sold herself into prostitution to pay off her parents' debts. She clings to the dream of freedom, yet wonders if anyone could ever truly love someone as dirtied as she is. The weight of her self-loathing is crushing, making her resolve to protect Tata even more desperate. But despite everything she sacrificed, the city lord still managed to tear her sister figure away. Wazoo listens, his expression softening as he admits he knows that feeling of desperation all too well. But the moment of empathy is shattered when the enemy tide returns, overwhelming the reinforcements with sheer numbers. Reigen-san screams for Wazoo to leave and save Tata immediately, insisting he's the only one who can. Torn between saving one person and protecting the army, Wazoo is paralyzed by an impossible choice, until a sudden attack forces his hand. Just as the situation looks dire, a familiar playful voice cuts through the chaos, asking if he's in a pinch. Wu looks up to see the colossal form of Ragnir descending from the sky. While the surrounding crowd is absolutely losing their minds in shock, Wazoo is casually chatting with a massive dragon. He tells the beast to take over the place while he heads out, looking completely unfazed by the chaos. With a sudden burst of energy, Wazoo leaps forward. Behind him, Ragnir gives him a shout-out, calling him best bud before quickly masking his affection with a classic grumpy humph. Reigen reports a grim situation. Around 800 enemies, including Goblin Kings, are closing in. But Ragnir isn't worried. He's just wondering how good those goblins will look once they're roasted. He orders everyone to fall back so he can clear the field. Total annihilation. Ragnir unleashes a catastrophic torrent of fire, incinerating the entire goblin army and turning the battlefield into a wasteland of charcoal in a single breath. The soldiers are in absolute awe, hailing Ragnir as the Dragon King. Amidst the cheers, Ragnir turns his attention to Reigen, mentioning his daughter Lula and someone named Mir. The army celebrates their guaranteed victory. The mood shifts instantly. Far away in a quiet town, a girl's desperate voice cuts through the air, begging to be let go. A nightmare unfolds as a monstrous figure looms over a girl named Tata, demanding she become his wife. Despite her terror, Tata fights back, screaming that no matter what happens to her body, her heart remains pure. The monster turns vile, hurling disgusting insults at her to break her spirit. But Tata doesn't crumble. She screams back that she gave herself to someone she truly loves, and it definitely wasn't him. Tears stream down her face as Tata declares her eternal love for another man, swearing with every fiber of her being that she will never, ever belong to the monster. Driven by malice, the monster decides to force her into submission by any means necessary. But just as he lunges to claim her, a devastating punch crashes into his face, stopping the horror in its tracks. Wazoo crashes into the scene with a massive explosive blast, instantly saving Ta from the chaos. Overwhelmed with emotion, she clings to him in tears, crying out his name in sheer relief. The tension softens as Wazoo comforts her, apologizing for being late and reminding her that he is her bodyguard. Seeing her shivering in nothing but underwear, he doesn't hesitate. He strips off his own shirt to cover her, leaving Tata completely flustered and wondering why he's being so kind. Just as the moment gets intimate, the wall literally explodes. A furious man storms in, screaming in disbelief that someone managed to break into his secure room, while Wazoo is genuinely confused why jumping over a wall is considered a big deal. The villain brags about his 30B rank guards, but Wazoo just casually points to a mountain of unconscious bodies. Turns out, he gave them all a special knuckle sandwich for hiding in the city lord's place during an emergency. Pushed to the edge, the villain unleashes his true power, summoning a devastating torrent of water and flame. He believes his magic is absolute, claiming his flames can bore through all of creation without exception. Rot in hell, the villain screams as the attack peaks. But Wazoo doesn't budge, shielding Tata with a look of absolute determination. Meanwhile, a mysterious hooded figure watches the carnage from afar. They're well aware of Wazoo's reputation and his bond with the Dragon King, wondering how the dull guy they once met became such a monster. The attack hits with a deafening roar, a chaotic mix of fire and water engulfing everything. Tata screams in terror, begging Wazoo to leave her behind and run away to save himself. But Wazoo isn't alone. The voices of the first goddess and the goddess of Mother Earth echo through the air, manifesting as ethereal protectors who challenge the agent of evil to give it his best shot. Tata is still panicking, pleading with him to abandon her, but Wazoo just gives her a reassuring smile. "I'm completely fine," he says, leaving Tata overwhelmed by a kindness she can't even begin to understand. Just when things look dire, Wazoo unleashes a devastating blow that shatters the air itself. The villain is absolutely floored, unable to comprehend how Wazoo remains completely unharmed by his attacks. But in the middle of the chaos, Wazoo does the one thing no one expected. He screams his feelings to the world. "I like you." Confession hits Tata-san like a physical blow, sending her into a total mental meltdown. She's completely flustered, convinced that someone like her could never be worthy of such pure love. Tears well up as Tata-san reveals the dark stain on her past, confessing that her body has been shared with far too many people to be loved. She believes she's too broken for him. Wazoo doesn't hesitate for a single second. He pulls her close and shouts with everything he has. He doesn't care about her past, because the only thing that matters is that he loves the woman standing in front of him. For a moment, the world is perfect, and Tata-san is overwhelmed with happiness. But the romantic mood is instantly crushed by the villain, who screams in a jealous rage about his woman being messed with. It was the wrong thing to say. Fueled by protective rage, Wazoo snaps, delivering a crushing strike that sends the arrogant monster flying with a violent jerk. The fight ends with the villain coughing up a mysterious dark orb. As Wazoo examines the sphere, he realizes it's exactly the same as the one from Gazuna. With the battle over, Wazoo carries a blushing Tata-san in his arms, insisting she's light as a feather. Their sweet moment is quickly interrupted by the loud arrival of their rowdy companions and a very excited Nenya. Warmth returns as Tata-san thanks Nenya for her help, while Wazoo gently reminds her not to blame herself. Between heartfelt apologies and shy smiles, the group finally finds a moment of peace. The chaos-threatening Linux is finally quelled, and the city breathes a sigh of relief. Thanks to the heroic efforts of Wazoo and the citizens, peace has returned, a truly happy ending. The next morning starts with Wazoo feeling like everything is finally back in order. But as the weather takes a turn for the worse, he doesn't even care. He's too excited about his plan to invite Tata-san out today. As he strolls through the city, Wazoo's mind is racing with possibilities. He wants to ask Tata-san to be his friend and maybe even travel with him, even if it means Mir might get a little jealous. But the mood shifts instantly as Wazoo discusses the victims of the recent chaos. Some are in a coma with a grim prognosis, and a chilling pattern emerges. The victims, including the Count and the Black Blaze adventurers, all expelled a mysterious red orb upon defeat. The plot thickens as Orlando reveals that a mysterious hooded man has been selling these red orbs, granting unnatural power at a terrible cost. Wazoo admits he's encountered this figure before, but the man's face remained hidden. Wazu is completely blindsided when he learns that Tada-san has already left Linnick with her family. The realization hits him like a ton of bricks. He's too late to invite her, and the thought of her being in danger from the Count's loyalists sends him into a panic. Desperate, Wazu sprints through the pouring rain, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He finds Nenya, but the news is devastating. She doesn't know where Tata-san is headed. Nenya explains that Tada-san left in secret for her own safety, and while Nenya was told to follow later, she can't just give away the location. Wazu is stung by the exclusion, but he quickly suppresses his feelings, deciding that Tada-san's peace is more important than his own desires. With a heavy heart, Wazu bids Nenya farewell, asking her to pass along his regards. As he walks away into the gray rain, the distance between him and Tada-san feels wider than ever. Standing alone in the downpour, Wazu is left with a crushing sense of loneliness. In his own mind, he's been dumped once again, leaving him drenched and heartbroken. A heavy sigh echoes as Sorona spirals into a bit of a crisis. She's desperate to join Wazu's harem, but the thought that he already has friends makes her feel unexpectedly depressed. Meanwhile, Tata is in a total panic, fighting to get back to Linnick. The guilt is eating her alive. Why didn't Wazu tell her it was dangerous? And does it look like she just cut him out of her life? Tata's desperation reaches a breaking point as she begs the owner to take her back. When Sorona asks why she'd go to such lengths for that guy, Tata doesn't hold back. She screams her love for him to the world. The confession hits Sorona like a ton of bricks. Just as Tata insists they return to him immediately, Sorona freezes, a sudden burning curiosity taking over. Sorona starts describing the man in question. Crazy strong, black hair and a normal look that somehow makes him adorable. The description is a perfect match. Then, the realization hits them both at once. Sorona figures out that Tata wants in on the action too, and the word harem explodes between them in pure shock. A heavy blushing silence falls over the table. The air is thick with tension as both girls process this sudden shared obsession. Sorona can't contain herself and demands to know exactly what kind of relationship Tata has with him. Tata's brain practically shuts down, leaving her a stuttering mess of san and sama. The pieces finally click into place. Tata realizes that Sorona's heart has been stolen by Wazu just as hers was, and for the first time, they find common ground in their shared longing. The fangirling goes into overdrive as they gush over his innocence, kindness, and absolute power. By the time they're done, the verdict is final. They're both officially members of Wazu-sama's harem. The air is thick with curiosity as Sorona asks a pointed question. Would the other girl mind sharing everything that happened between her and Wazu? The blonde elf Tata is all too eager to join in, and together the two plot to pester Wazu until he spills every secret. But while they're plotting, Wazu is in a completely different state. He's a total wreck, sobbing uncontrollably while clinging to his fluffy companion, Q, who can only offer confused little noises in return. The concern is growing. Wazu hasn't eaten properly and has been rotting in bed for 5 days. While some suggest encouraging him, others realize that Wazu's pain runs deeper. He's searching for a kind of friendship that they simply cannot provide. Suddenly, the peace is shattered. Orlando bursts into the room like a whirlwind, ignoring all warnings and literally dragging Wazu out of bed. He's not taking no for an answer. He's got words for Wazu, and he's delivering them right now. Orlando doesn't waste time with pleasantries. He demands a match. Wazu tries to warn him that he can't possibly win, but Orlando is fueled by a stubborn fire, charging forward with a shout to fight. Complete slaughter. Wazu effortlessly dodges and counters, leaving Orlando face down in the dirt. Despite the loss, Orlando is breathless with admiration, admitting he couldn't even scratch Wazu. Orlando explains that a good fight is the best cure for the blues, but the mood flips instantly when Wazu mentions a girl named Tata. Orlando snaps, screaming for him to never say that name, before suddenly turning serious again. Then comes the bombshell. Orlando points a finger and declares Wazu so uncool, claiming he knew the truth all along. He shouts that their levels are completely different, leaving Wazu stunned by the sudden insult. But the anger fades into something like pity. Orlando admits that as a man, he feels for Wazu's situation, but he also reveals a hidden truth. He respected Wazu from the bottom of his heart, after seeing him crush those goblins. Looking out over the horizon, Orlando confesses his true motive. He wanted to be just like Wazu. Not just a guard, but a man with the strength to truly protect others. A man who deeply admires Wazu can't stand seeing him rot away in a room over a lost love. Wazu tries to brush him off, but his new acquaintance isn't taking none of your business for an answer. He's determined to get Wazu back on his feet. The mood shifts to raw honesty as Wazu admits a painful truth. While he's physically a monster, his heart is fragile, and he tends to hide when things get tough. His friend mirrors that vulnerability, admitting he's just searching for friends to fill a void in his own soul. Wazu spirals into a deep loneliness, envying the adventurers who travel with companions. To him, all the strength in the world feels like a curse if there's no one by your side to share the journey with. Bam! A sudden punch to the face snaps Wazoo out of his self-pity. His friend screams that his strength isn't useless just because he's lonely, declaring that while the world praises others, the real hero is Wazoo. The emotional hammer drops as his friend reminds him that he saved the woman he loved and made her smile, even if she's gone. He challenges Wazoo's entire worldview. Is the strongest power meant for wallowing, or for protecting the happiness of others? A vision of a better life unfolds, solving problems, helping strangers, and bringing back smiles. As the image of a world-renowned hero takes shape, Wazoo begins to wonder if that's a path he could actually walk. With a face full of pure passion, his friend gives one final, desperate push. He doesn't want Wazoo to be a hermit anymore. He wants him to be that legendary man. The walls finally crumble. Wazoo thinks of the faces of the women he's helped, and for the first time in a long time, a genuine hopeful smile breaks across his face. The decision is made. Wazoo stands tall, finally agreeing that the idea of being a hero sounds good. Unbeknownst to him, a group of admirers has been watching the whole exchange, absolutely thrilled that he's finally snapped out of it. From heartbreak to ambition, Wazoo and his friend Orlando crash into Reagan's office with a bombshell. They both want to become knights, their next destination, the royal capital man bond. The real journey begins now. The farewell is anything but quiet. Lula is absolutely devastated, clinging to Wazoo with tears streaming down her face as he prepares to leave. But amidst the emotional chaos, a bald guild official hands over a hefty sum of money. The mission reward Wazoo has earned. It's not just money. The official hands him a special badge from his own adventuring days, a token that could grant Wazoo benefits at the East Royal Capital's guild head office. With a final cheerful wave, Wazoo bids everyone goodbye and steps out of Linux for good. And so, the long journey begins. Together with Mir and Orlando, Wazoo sets his sights on the royal capital, leaving the peaceful village behind. But as they walk away, there's something Wazoo is completely oblivious to. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a carriage racing through the rain at breakneck speed. Inside, a group is desperately chasing after him, with the owner laughing to himself about how interesting Wazoo's bright future is becoming. The chase is led by two stunning beauties, their eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and longing. Even the catgirl Nenya can't help but comment on how tough it is to see Wazoo's bitter face, while these two are on his trail. The atmosphere in the carriage turns electric as the topic of Wazoo's harem comes up. While one girl blushes furiously and insists he's just a bodyguard, the other can't help but smile, realizing her list of love rivals is growing. Back on the road, Orlando is completely spent, gasping for air after taking down only 30 monsters. Wazoo looks at him with genuine confusion. To him, being tired after such a small feat is practically unheard of. Wazoo tries to explain his strength, mentioning the goddess's protection, but he gives the real credit to Mir. It turns out his secret is eating bizarre, often poisonous things that Mir fed him, turning his body into something beyond human. Hearing this, Orlando's envy turns into deep respect. He realizes that Wazoo's power didn't come effortlessly, and it's that humble, unassuming attitude that makes people naturally want to rely on him. Inspired, Orlando reveals his dream of becoming a knight, and Wazoo is more than happy to help. With a mischievous grin, he promises a brutal Sparta training regimen for the next 50 days. Whether Orlando is ready for it or not, after a long day, it's finally time to crash. Wazoo takes charge of the camp, ordering Mir to get the beds ready, and the little dragon delivers with a cute thank you, as she uses her magic to set things up. Orlando is absolutely floored by the convenience, wondering how Wazoo manages to make survival look this easy. As they settle in, Orlando starts teasing Wazoo about his love life, suggesting that since Mir is so devoted to him, she might just be the one to become his future wife. Wazoo's reaction is a mix of awkwardness and a desperate internal prayer. He's totally fine with the affection, but he's really hoping his future spouse is actually human. The peace of the morning is shattered when Wazoo's superhuman senses pick up something disturbing. While Orlando is still half asleep, Wazoo hears the distant, jagged sounds of a violent quarrel. Voices screaming in terror and thugs laughing as they exploit the weak. Wazoo doesn't hesitate for a second. He wakes Orlando with a shout, his mind already racing with the need to protect those in danger. Without needing all the details, he bolts toward the noise, leaving a confused Orlando scrambling to keep up. The scene is grim. A gang of brutal bandits is harassing a group of terrified women. Just as things look hopeless, their captain steps forward, risking everything to shield her subordinates from the filth of these monsters. In a desperate act of bravery, the captain offers herself to the thugs just to save her girls. But instead of fear or respect, the bandit responds with a cruel, heartless insult about her weight, leaving her screaming in rage and humiliation. Just as the tension reaches a breaking point, Wazoo and Orlando burst onto the scene. Wazoo's hearing was spot on, and seeing the women in trouble triggers his protective instinct. He's not letting this stand, and he's bringing the fight to them. Boom. The duo makes a dramatic entrance, landing right in the middle of the chaos. The bandits are stunned, and the captain can only stare in disbelief as two strangers suddenly drop from the sky to intervene. Wazoo is so composed it's almost insulting. He casually assigns Orlando to handle 3 armored thugs as a way to test his strength, completely ignoring the bandits' confused rage. To Wazoo, this isn't a life or death struggle. It's a training session. The bandits try to intimidate them by announcing their fearsome name, the Pagando brothers, expecting terror. Instead, they get a face full of Wazoo's utter indifference. He doesn't know who they are, and he couldn't care less, shouting back with a level of contempt that shuts them down instantly. Wazoo has seen enough. With a roar of pure rage, he lunges into the fray, screaming at the bastards to let go of the women. Not even a fight. It's a slaughter. Wazoo tears through the enemy lines with blinding speed and overwhelming force, leaving nothing but destruction in his wake. As the screams of terror fade, all that's left is a literal mountain of defeated foes. Wazoo just shrugs it off with a casual, "Well, I guess that's that then." After making sure everyone is okay, Wazoo tries to help one of the women out of her bonds. But then comes the awkward part. She's so plump that he can't even get his finger in to untie the knot. The woman reveals she's the captain of the Cassie squad, and a close aide to the second princess of the Manbond kingdom. While she's grateful for the rescue, Wazoo is just left wondering who these people even are. Suddenly, a ring on the captain's finger flashes with light. A voice cuts through the air, frantically asking if Cassie is safe, and revealing that they've finally reached Mima village. Before they can even process the call, a man practically tackles the captain in a desperate hug, shouting "Namanisha-sama" in total relief. The reunion is short-lived. Just as they gather in Mima village, a chilling voice emerges from the shadows declaring that they've finally found them. Chaos erupts as a smokescreen blinds the group. They're completely outnumbered, and the realization hits hard. There's no way they can stand against this many enemies. Forced into a desperate retreat, they hole up in a house on the outskirts, praying for backup while their magic barrier slowly drains. But just as they think they're safe, something terrifying happens outside. A devastating blow shatters the silence, sending a knight flying with terrifying force. As the dust settles, a girl watches in absolute shock, unable to comprehend who this monster of a man actually is. But for one girl, the shock transforms into something entirely different. Just by looking at his back, a sudden overwhelming feeling washes over her. The kind of spark that only happens once in a lifetime. A total whirlwind of emotion. Without even knowing his name, she feels her heart racing, convinced that this is the start of a brand new love. To understand how it came to this, we go back a few days to Oishi village. Wazoo arrives in high spirits, though his companions are already starting to feel a bit uneasy about what he's been up to. A reason for their unease. Wazoo has helped the village by burying a group of bandits up to their necks, like some twisted flower garden. While Captain Cassie prepares to head to Linux to ensure they're properly punished, the survivors can only stare in horror. The farewell is pure chaos. While some are desperately pleading for him to tell them about his journey, others are practically worshipping Orlando-sama, leaving Wazoo completely flustered. With a bright smile and a final warning to be careful, Captain Cassie rides off. The remaining group is left behind to keep watch, though the tension is still thick with unsaid feelings. Left to his own thoughts, Wazoo starts spiraling, wondering if his hair is the reason he's not as popular as Orlando. Even Mir's comfort doesn't stop him from considering a total image change. Just then, a playful wink from a companion catches him off guard. He finds her cute, but as he ponders if she's actually his type, he's left in a state of total confusion. Wazoo effortlessly carries the girl, barely noticing her weight thanks to his absurd strength. But the real shock comes when he casually mentions he'll reach Mima village, a full day's ride away, by simply running there. Wazoo is moving at a speed that defies logic, leaving his companions completely floored. They can't help but wonder, what on earth is his body actually made of to possess such insane strength and stamina? As night falls, the group settles around a campfire, calculating that they should reach Mima village by tomorrow evening. While the woman thanks them for their help, Wazoo admits there's something he's been wanting to ask. Wazoo asks for a favor in return for his help, wanting to mediate a situation for Orlando, who dreams of becoming a knight. The conversation takes a serious turn as the woman mentions a mysterious incident in the country of Manbond, and a person named Namanisha-sama. They finally arrive at Mima village, but the silence is unsettling. The sun has set, and the streets are ghost town empty. When Wazoo finally knocks on a door, a startled woman answers, recognizing him as Knight-sama. The villager reveals a chilling detail. 2 days ago, a group in red armor surrounded a house on the outskirts to stop a secret investigation. The realization hits the group. These aren't just random bandits, and they need to get to that house immediately. At the outskirts, A squad of red-armored knights has the house trapped under a translucent magic barrier. They mock the captives inside, telling them it's useless to resist since their magic power will eventually run dry. Watching from the brush, the group notes that these knights are far more disciplined and trained than the bandits they've faced. While the others hesitate, Wazoo decides he's had enough waiting and prepares to charge in. With a playful wink and a finger to his lips, Wazoo vanishes. In a sudden, explosive burst of power, he shatters the barrier and slams into the knights like a human meteor. Knights are sent flying through the air, as Wazoo casually admits he's probably not very good at stealth. Enraged by the sudden assault, the remaining soldiers scream for him to prepare to die, but the knights are outclassed. Wazoo moves with blinding speed, delivering a devastating blow that turns the battlefield into a zone of absolute destruction. The battle is absolute carnage as Wazoo tears through the armored ranks with terrifying ease. Amidst the wreckage of his enemies, he delivers a chilling warning. If they truly want to kill him, they'll have to try harder. Then comes the finishing blow, the God's Sword, which obliterates everything in its path in a blinding flash of power. Watching from a window, a mysterious woman is left breathless, wondering who this monster of a man is and if he's the rescuer Cassie brought along. As the dust settles, Wazoo casually apologizes for going a little overboard, completely oblivious to the fact that his companions are staring at him in pure shock. Just as they try to process his absurd strength, they realize the barrier is finally opening. Cassie bursts onto the scene, confidently declaring she's come to save them, while Wazoo looks on with a confused expression. As the door swings open, the real prize of the mission is finally revealed. Stepping out from the shadows is a stunning woman with pointed ears and a gaze that immediately locks onto Wazoo. The air shifts instantly as the group stands before her. One look at Wazoo and the woman's expression transforms. Her eyes begin to sparkle. Her cheeks flush a deep red and it becomes clear. She is completely captivated by him. She closes the distance in a heartbeat, leaning in so close that Wazoo practically freezes in place, his face turning bright red, while his companions whisper that it's too close. A flustered Wazoo can barely stammer out his name. Reaction is explosive. She beams with pure joy, practically worshipping him as Wazoo-sama, before introducing herself as Namanisha Manbond, a name that immediately catches Wazoo's attention because it matches the name of the country. With a proud, radiant smile, she drops the bombshell. She is the second princess of Manbond. Wazoo might have just been trying to help, but he's accidentally saved royalty. But while Wazoo is dealing with a smitten princess, the mood shifts elsewhere. A stern man and a sharp-eyed woman with a braided ponytail look on, their expressions suggesting that this rescue is far from the end of their troubles. A mysterious, ornate necklace catches the light, hinting at something deeper than just jewelry. As the scene shifts, we arrive at a quaint village nestled beneath a towering mountain, the start of a new chapter. But the atmosphere is anything but peaceful for Wazoo. He's practically vibrating with panic because the girl next to him is sitting way too close, like dangerously close. He tries to convince himself the room is plenty big, but his brain is already short-circuiting. Then comes the reveal. This friendly girl is actually Namanisha, the second princess of the Manbond kingdom. While she's perfectly happy to keep things casual and close, Wazoo is struggling just to keep his composure in the presence of royalty. Enter Floyd, Namanisha's personal butler, who introduces himself with a polished smile. But the conversation takes a weird turn when he praises Wazoo's good taste in how he buried the defeated knights. Wazoo is left wondering if this guy is actually insane. Next up is Kumiya, the personal maid, who is just as shy and flustered as Wazoo. She barely manages to stutter out her introduction, her nervousness filling the air as she tries to be polite. Suddenly, Wazoo's world stops. He catches a glimpse of Kumiya's impressive proportions and his mind goes completely blank. One word echoes in his head, huge. He's so stunned he can barely function. Wazoo starts doing some scientific comparisons in his head, noting how Kumiya's curves are completely unbalanced for her small frame. He doesn't notice Namanisha's deadly glare until a sharp ahem snaps him back to reality. Orlando, a soldier aspiring to be a knight, steps in to introduce himself and set the record straight. He reveals the truth to the group. Wazoo didn't just help. He single-handedly crushed every single red-armored attacker. The revelation clearly does something to Namanisha, as she looks at Wazoo with literal hearts in her eyes. But just as the tension peaks, Wazoo is hit by a sudden wave of panic and bolts out of the room without a word. The reason for the escape? Wazoo is frantically checking his status screen, terrified that his human purity is dropping. While he's having a full-blown crisis over his stats, the goddess of Mother Earth is just laughing her head off at what an absolute idiot he is. Wait, what is happening here? The air is thick with a bizarre rivalry as the girls obsess over breast sizes, declaring anyone with huge ones an enemy. Meanwhile, Wazoo just stands there, completely lost in the chaos. Conversation shifts to something even more dangerous, Wazu's love life. A curious girl asks the big question, does he have a lover? Orlando quickly steps in explaining that Wazu isn't playing hard to get, he's just terrified of women. It turns out the girls find his lack of confidence absolutely adorable. They see him as a pessimistic but gentlemanly soul who needs protecting. Poor Wazu, meanwhile, looks like he's having a mental breakdown in the background, but the mood flips instantly when Namanisha takes a serious turn. She's finally ready to trust them with the truth about why she and her party fled the royal capital. The story unfolds as Namanisha introduces her family. The king and queen and her two siblings, Navilio and Neralina. A picture-perfect royal family, or so it seemed. The siblings are legends in their own right. Neralina is the terrifying blood-rain Valkyrie. Navilio is the nation's strategic genius. And Namanisha herself is the compassionate, bloodless holy princess. Then tragedy strikes. An unknown disease plunges the king and queen into a coma. And suddenly the siblings turn on each other with murderous intent. A family once united is now divided by a war of hatred. Wazu and the group piece together the mystery, suspecting a hidden hand behind the conflict. Then a crucial detail emerges. Both siblings were wearing strange accessories, a bracelet and a necklace. Orlando drops a bombshell. Those aren't just accessories, they're stolen cursed tools. One turns the wearer into a puppet, the other into a berserker, and the longer they're worn, the tighter the grip of the curse becomes. With the stakes this high, Wazu suggests a simple solution. Just walk up to them. But with knights guarding the siblings and the curse blocking their memories, Wazu decides the only way forward is to break through by force. And Orlando knows Wazu is the only man strong enough to do it. Wazu casually mentions that even a god's sword can't hurt him, leaving Namanisha completely starstruck by his absurd power. But the mood shifts instantly as he brings up the painful rift between her and her siblings, noticing the hidden sadness she carries. Empathy hits home, and Namanisha is floored by his kindness, calling him truly amazing. However, the emotional moment takes a sharp turn into awkward tension as a sudden blush sweeps over her face. A new mission emerges when Namanisha makes a personal, informal request. She needs Wazu to destroy cursed tools to bring her brother and sister back. Wazu doesn't hesitate for a second, agreeing with an enthusiastic shout. But there's a catch. Wazu doesn't want a reward for himself. Instead, he asks for one thing, a chance for Orlando to prove himself and become a knight. Touched by his selflessness, Namanisha happily agrees, noting that Wazu has already proven his strength. While he insists he wants nothing more, she decides that his reward will be something she chooses herself. The distance between them closes even further. With a bright smile, Namanisha tells Wazu to drop the formalities. She wants him to call her simply by her name. One step too close, Nishina's sudden proximity sends Wazu into a total panic, his brain practically shutting down as she leans in to make sure he understands. He manages to stutter out her name, much to her absolute delight. With the deal struck and hearts racing, the group prepares to set off for the royal capital the very next morning. As they settle in for the night, Floyd tries to make a lewd joke about the sleeping arrangements and huge breasts, only to be violently shut down in a flash of chaos. Morning arrives with a bang. Kumiya doesn't believe in gentle wake-up calls, dragging Wazu out of his dreams with a chaotic burst of energy that leaves him completely dazed. Wazu wakes up to a total curveball. A woman named Kumua is there, and it turns out she's actually the alternate personality of Kumiya. Talk about a confusing morning. Awkwardness hits a peak when Kumua insists on wiping his body. Wazu is practically vibrating with embarrassment, wondering why the people he meets are always so unique. Even Mir is staring. Wazu laughs it off, admitting that if he could actually turn human like Ragnar, he'd be way too embarrassed to show his face. Wazu tells Mir he's perfect just the way he is, but the sweetness is cut short when Namanisha steps in. She leans in close to fix his robe, leaving Mir completely speechless. Wazu tries to soothe Mir with some cuddles, but Namanisha just watches with a playful smirk, calling him a sinful person for being so naturally charming. Then, the horizon opens up to reveal the sheer scale of their destination, the breathtaking royal capital, Manbon. The stakes are set. They must escort Relayama to the royal castle to break a curse on her siblings. Wazu is all in, determined to do his best. Wazu is absolutely floored by the city's massive size, but Namanisha quickly breaks down the layout, from the royal castle to the outer wards. While Wazu admits he's more at home in the mountains, Namanisha speaks proudly of her father's role in the city's prosperity. She heads off to clear the way with the gate guards, but the moment of calm is obliterated. A carriage suddenly bolts away at breakneck speed, and Wazu screams for Namanisha to stop, leaving her looking completely stunned. A sudden, breathless moment. Wazu finds himself in an unexpectedly intimate embrace with Namanisha, leaving her completely flustered. But as he pulls back, Wazu is only thinking about how close he came to getting caught. The mood is shattered when a flashy blonde man bursts onto the scene, greeting Namanisha with way too much energy. Wazoo is left completely bewildered, wondering who this guy is and why he's acting so familiar. Enter Dinroga, who immediately questions Wazoo's presence. Namanisha tries to vouch for him as a strong adventurer and her new bodyguard. But Dinroga isn't buying it. One look at Wazoo, and he's convinced the guy is a total weakling. Namanisha doesn't hold back, roasting Dinroga's lack of security right to his face. But then she drops a bombshell on Wazoo that leaves him reeling. She mentions getting father-in-law's approval, sparking a sudden, panicked thought. Marriage? With a cheerful goodbye, Namanisha leaves Dinroga in the dust. But as she walks with Wazoo, her playful mood shifts to curiosity. She's heard rumors of a marriage, and she's dying to know if it involves Dinroga. A plot thickens as the history of the land is revealed. We learn that Dinroga is the son of the Duke of Freebond, part of a complex web involving 2 royal families and a missing successor. The truth comes out. Namanisha is absolutely horrified by a forced engagement to Dinroga and vows to break it. In her passion, she gets dangerously close to Wazoo, declaring that she herself will be his reward. Wazoo is blushing hard, praying she's just joking. You can do anything you like with me. The offer is so bold it practically short-circuits Wazoo's brain. But the romantic tension is cut short by the castle staff, who warn Namanisha that she's forbidden from seeing her brother. It seems the guards have put Navilio-sama under strict lockdown, barring everyone, even his family. Namanisha isn't giving up though, pleading just to see him from a distance. With Wazoo's support, the forbidden door finally creaks open, and there he is. A chilling presence awaits them behind the desk, eyes glowing with an intensity that suggests this meeting is anything but friendly. The man who was once a pillar of kindness has become a hollow shell. Namanisha watches in heartbreak as her brother Navilio acts like a mindless puppet, devoid of the warmth and understanding that once defined him. Unable to bear it, Namanisha throws herself at Wazoo's feet, begging him to save her brother. Wazoo doesn't hesitate. In a sudden explosive burst of speed, he vanishes from sight, leaving everyone in shock. He moves like a blur of lightning across the grand hall. With one precise and overwhelming strike, Wazoo shatters the control bracelet, instantly snapping the invisible chains binding Navilio. The speed is so absurd it leaves the guards speechless, but the rescue is misinterpreted. As Wazoo pins Navilio down to ensure he's safe, the guards fly into a rage, screaming that he's attacked their lord. One guard lunges with a death threat, but Wazoo shuts him down instantly. With a single crushing blow, he sends the attacker crashing to the floor, confirming his suspicions about the red-armored people behind this plot. Confusion turns to gratitude as the guards realize Wazoo was their savior all along. With the threat neutralized, Wazoo calls out to Namanisha, who rushes toward her brother in a wave of pure relief. Reunion is tearful as Navilio slowly regains his senses. Realizing he was used as a tool for chaos, he immediately apologizes to his sister for the trouble he's caused. Navilio reveals a chilling truth. He was conscious the entire time, trapped inside a body that refused to obey him. While the siblings embrace, Wazoo simply brushes off the heroic feat as if it were nothing. Overwhelmed by gratitude, Navilio attempts to bow with royal humility, which only makes the awkward Wazoo panic. When asked why he helped, Wazoo admits it was all for Namanisha's sake. Just as the tension fades, Navilio drops a bombshell. With a blindingly bright smile, he skips all formalities and asks Wazoo to call him brother-in-law, leaving Wazoo bewildered and Namanisha completely flustered. Determined to help, Wazoo asks where Naralina is, declaring his intent to save her from the curse. But as they arrive at the courtyard, the air is thick with tension. Naralina is already in the throes of a painful struggle. Absolute chaos. Naralina is caught in a violent seizure, her body lashing out with uncontrolled power. When a maid tries to offer her food and drink, Naralina screams for her to stay back, terrified that she might accidentally kill the woman. The outburst turns manic as Naralina shatters everything in her path, her eyes wide with a frightening intensity. In a distorted voice, she demands that man be brought to her, screaming that she'll cut Navilio's neck the moment he arrives. Watching from the sidelines, a woman explains that Naralina is her tomboyish little sister and the leader of the country's army, but she's now completely lost to this condition. Moved by the plea, Wazoo agrees to help her regain her sanity, hoping to see his own sister again one day. With a confident smirk, Waz takes on the burden. Leave it to me, he declares, leaving everyone to wonder if he truly possesses the power to remove Naralina's devastating curse. Inside her own mind, Naralina is fighting a losing battle. She feels a foreign force controlling her body, leaving her horrified and questioning if her own heart is too weak to resist this mysterious magic. A moment of truth arrives. Wazoo and Naralina face off in the garden, the silence between them charged with an electric, dangerous energy. Without warning, Naralina lunges with a ferocious sword swing, screaming for the insolent fellow to be beheaded. Yet, beneath the violence, her inner voice is pleading for him to get away so she doesn't hurt him. all while Wazoo calmly wonders about her necklace. In a blur of speed, Wazoo vanishes and reappears right behind her. Noticing something strange inside her armor, he makes a sudden shocking move that sends Naralina into a panic and leaves the onlookers screaming in terror. The dust settles, and to everyone's disbelief, Wazoo is completely unhurt, his clothes barely scratched. With a playful grin, he notes the princess's strength before declaring it's finally his turn to act. A sudden, violent impact sends the armored warrior flying backward, the sheer force of the blow echoing through the air with a deafening crash. Just as she's about to hit the ground, a pair of strong arms catch her, but the attack isn't over. A brutal strike shatters her armor, leaving her screaming in frustration. With a sharp crack, the chest piece disintegrates, revealing a mysterious necklace beneath. The impact is so sudden it sends a shockwave through her entire body. Wazoo spots the culprit immediately. Declaring that such a crooked necklace doesn't suit the beautiful Naralina-sama, he leans in close to remove it, leaving her completely flustered. One swift motion, he destroys the jewelry, and the dark energy finally drains from Naralina's body. As the onlookers cheer his success, she feels a heavy, bad feeling finally vanish. But as she looks up at the man who saved her, a different kind of intensity takes over. Her heart begins to throb violently, racing with a feeling she can't explain. Held securely in his arms, Naralina slowly regains her senses. She softly thanks him for the rescue, while Wazoo, ever the gentleman, asks if anything is still wrong. The air grows thick with tension as Naralina realizes this is her first time being hugged by a man, and she finds she doesn't hate it. When he introduces himself as Wazoo, the moment is interrupted by a shocked scream from the sidelines. Omanisha rushes in, overjoyed to see that his elder sister has finally returned to normal. The family reunion is warm, but the peace is short-lived. Gratitude quickly turns into brotherly jealousy as Nomanisha explodes, questioning why Wazoo hugged his sister for so long. While others try to calm him down, Wazoo is left panicking, wondering if he's about to be arrested for disrespecting royalty. Manisha is completely lava-struck, her mind racing as she recalls the feeling of Wazoo's manly arm. But the mood shifts instantly when Naralina reacts with pure shock, while Navilio recalls a childhood rivalry over a teddy bear that set the stage for this chaotic tension. A flashback reveals the sisters once tore a toy apart in a fierce battle for affection. Now Navilio looks at Wazoo, currently sandwiched between the two, and wonders how to handle a situation where there's only one prize to go around. The sisters reach a sudden, dangerous agreement. They aren't kids anymore, so they'll just share him. Wazoo's brain practically shuts down in terror as he begs them not to literally tear him apart. With sparkling eyes, the two women lean in and ask Wazoo to be the man for both of them. Navilio finds this peaceful resolution hilarious, but Wazoo is left in a state of absolute bewilderment. Orlina wants something more. She demands Wazoo drop the formalities and call her by her name. After a few clumsy attempts, he finally says it, sending her into a state of pure, radiating happiness. After Namanisha apologizes to the terrified staff for her earlier outburst, the group follows Navilio. Their destination is the royal chamber, where the king and queen remain trapped in a mysterious sleep. Standing beside the slumbering parents, the atmosphere turns heavy. Navilio is troubled, his recovery magic is useless, and there are no cursed tools in sight, leaving the cause of this deep sleep a complete mystery. Is broken as Floyd, Kumia, and Cassie burst in, overjoyed to find Navilio and Nerlina safe. They're immediately impressed by Wazoo's capabilities, with some even suggesting he be appointed as a knight. To solve the royal mystery, Navilio introduces the guildmaster, Relaya. As the door creaks open, an overwhelming presence enters the room, leaving Wazoo and his companion shivering in sudden instinctive fear. Then she appears. Relaya, a woman of stunning beauty and commanding authority. Wazoo is completely frozen, his jaw dropping as he realizes the guildmaster is far more intimidating and impressive than he ever imagined. Wait, a C rank? Wazoo proudly presents his guild card, but Relaya isn't looking at the rank. She's wondering why her idiot brother trusted this man so much. Then comes the reveal. She's Relaya, the guildmaster of the East Royal Capital. She knows the truth, that a mere C rank couldn't have defeated the Royal Knights, and Wazoo is far more than he seems. Wazoo is completely flustered by the praise, but the mood shifts instantly as they discuss a dire situation. Someone has been asleep for far too long, and Relaya suspects a drug that isn't known to the public. It's an ancient magic drug, lost to time. The only way to break the spell is to find the culprit, but with the drug being so rare, the task feels nearly impossible. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off in Wazoo's head. He remembers Ragnir. After Mir confirms that Ragnir has lived for an eternity, Wazoo realizes he's found his answer. Fast forward to their arrival in the rugged mountains. Wazoo is pumped, ready to find someone with the ancient knowledge needed to wake the sleepers. He sets his sights on the castle, but as he approaches, he notices a group already gathered at the gates. Wazoo lets out a booming call for Ragnir, But instead of the dragon, he's greeted by a chaotic squad of monsters screaming one thing, "Let's play!" Confusion reigns as Wazoo asks who they are, only for the monsters to be outraged that a human is trespassing. When Wazoo claims to be Ragnar's friend, the tension hits a breaking point. Before he can explain, he's caught in a bone-crushing hug by Gain, the Lion Man. Then the rest of the squad joins in for a welcome that sends Wazoo flying across the landscape. A thunderous laugh echoes through the air as Ragnar the Dragon introduces Wazoo to a peculiar group. These are the so-called apex creatures of the mountains, though they don't exactly look like the terrifying monsters one would expect. The mood is awkward as the apex creatures admit they've been utterly crushed by a mere human. But in a sudden flip of emotion, they decide that if Wazoo is Ragnar's friend, he's their friend too, leaving Wazoo to awkwardly apologize for beating them up. Meet the crew: Nil the Necromancer, Zir the Werewolf, Gain the Golden Lion, and Rudo the High Arrow Fu. But the introductions take a sharp turn when Rudo reveals his true passion, an obsessive, borderline disturbing love for female elves. Rudo goes on a full-blown rant about his exile from his village for his perverted antics, dreaming of the gap between elven nobility and Eros. Wazoo can only watch in pure horror as the elf screams his love for all things perverted. Taking off the weirdness, Wazoo gets back to the mission. He turns to Nil, the Necromancer, hoping for answers about the king who has been trapped in a deep sleep by an ancient magic drug. Nil explains that curing such a drug requires a precise touch, or it could cause a disaster. He offers to get something useful from his lab, but warns that the journey is far too long for any human. Wazoo's response? A simple, confident, no problem. Wazoo casually claims he can reach the destination by tomorrow morning, leaving Nil stunned since the trip usually takes 7 days. When Wazoo offers to carry him on his back, Nil descends into a panic, imagining himself being stoned or eaten by dogs in a human town. Wazoo tries to reassure the trembling skeleton, promising to beat up anyone who dares attack him. His heart is in the right place. He genuinely wants to reunite the royal family and see them happy again. Driven by the image of a smiling royal family, Wazoo practically begs Nil for his help. The Necromancer finally agrees, but there's a catch. He has one very specific condition. The condition? If Wazoo ever meets a skeleton with a beautiful collarbone, he must introduce her to Nil. As the skeleton's eyes sparkle with romantic longing, a heavy, awkward silence falls over the entire group. Wazoo arrives at the royal capital in high spirits, though his passenger, the skeletal Nil, is feeling a bit rattled. After a bumpy ride that nearly shook Nil's bones apart, Wazoo warns him to keep his face hidden to avoid scaring the locals. The reunion is explosive as Orlandano, now an apprentice knight, spots Wazoo and celebrates his return. Amidst the chaos and playful threats, Nil the Necromancer is introduced, though he's currently suffering a bit of an existential crisis over his lack of a heart. Wazoo is greeted by a prince and a group of admiring girls, but the real focus shifts to Nil. Despite the eerie nature of a necromancer, the prince remains composed, earning a hearty laugh from the skeleton. Nil reveals he's suppressing a terrifying aura that would normally overwhelm others, making the prince realize his fear was misplaced. Wazoo, however, is desperately trying to keep the spotlight off his own strength to avoid raising expectations. The mood shifts as a girl with glasses puts the pieces together. Could this skeletal companion be the legendary mage King Nil? Wazoo is completely clueless, but the revelation is staggering. Nil is a powerhouse capable of leveling entire nations. The truth comes out, and Nil doesn't even deny it. With a nostalgic laugh, he acknowledges the title of Mage King, confirming his status as a living legend. While the guild master demands respect for the legendary mage, Nil is more interested in the patients. One look at the sleeping victims, and he immediately identifies the cause: a rare and potent magic drug. The diagnosis is grim, the eternal sleeping drug. Nil warns that waking them by force could be fatal, meaning the only safe way out is to craft a specific canceling agent. He can make it, but there's a catch. The missing piece of the puzzle? A vampire's fang. While the girls panic at the mention of such a dangerous creature, Nil assures them it's just a catalyst, though finding a vampire is easier said than done. With a lead on a vampire's lair, Wazoo doesn't hesitate to volunteer for the mission. But he won't be going alone. His enthusiastic companions are practically begging to tag along for the ride. The princesses are desperate to prove themselves, boasting about their sword and magic skills to show they won't be a burden. Even with the royal family's hesitation, their determination to help their parents recover is undeniable. Seeing their resolve, Wazoo finally gives in and agrees to let them join the journey. Pure joy erupts as the princesses scramble to get ready for the trip. But while they're excited, a royal official watches from the sidelines, completely baffled by how a mere C-rank adventurer has managed to get so close to the royal family and the world's most powerful beings. A sudden offer for a rank up to B or even has Wazoo's head spinning with excitement. He's all in, but the moment he turns around, the princesses reappear, leaving him completely breathless by their presence. Dressed and ready for adventure, the princesses are a whirlwind of energy. Between the bold requests for care and the sweet promises of teamwork, Wazoo is officially in over his head. To keep their royal identities secret, the princesses have opted for very minimal armor. But it's the mention of camping outside that sends Wazoo's mind into a total meltdown. Camping with two princesses? His brain practically shuts down at the thought. They leave the borders of their homeland. The bravado fades into honest fear and sisterly love. It's a tender moment of family bonding, but the peace is short-lived as the conversation turns back to Wazoo. Wazoo is in full protector mode, boasting that no monster stands a chance against him. But his confidence quickly turns to pure panic when he remembers the gear. There's only one tent. One tent for 3 people? He's fighting for his life against his own imagination. While the others ride, Wazoo is perfectly content walking, or even sleeping in a tree. But the swordswoman princess has a better idea. She offers a hands-on lesson, inviting him to ride right in front of her. A sudden rivalry sparks between the sisters. The older one claims the first spot with a smug grin, leaving the younger one fuming. Before Wazoo can even process the offer, they both vanish, leaving him standing there in a cloud of confusion and sudden loneliness. Total emotional collapse. Wazoo is so devastated by being left out that he resorts to a loneliness position learned from his sister. Just as he's hitting rock bottom, the princesses return, claiming they've peacefully settled the order. Wazoo is in for a shock. The horse riding lessons are split between 2 sisters, and while the instructors are excited to take charge, Wazoo is already having a total meltdown. It gets worse. Fast. With Naralina pressed firmly against his back, Wazoo's brain practically shuts down. How is he supposed to focus on the reins when he's feeling that much pressure? He tries to play it cool, reminding himself that she's a princess and he's just a commoner. But then she starts rubbing against him, praising his wide back, and any hope of staying calm vanishes instantly. As darkness falls, the group decides to set up camp. While Mir prepares a barrier spell, Wazoo is left spiraling in his own thoughts, feeling the weight of the situation. After a moment of self-reflection, Wazoo resolves to give it his all tomorrow. Meanwhile, the camp comes alive with the chaotic energy of the girls arguing over who gets to handle dinner. Wazoo has a secret mission. He needs to master the art of traveling with women if he ever wants to build his dream harem. But first, he's distracted by the scent of high-end hair products. One lean in and a quick sniff, and Wazoo confirms it. She smells like roses. The tension is electric, leaving the girl blushing and another watching from the sidelines, wondering if he's moving a bit too fast. And Wazoo decides to be brutally honest about his goals. He starts with helping people, but then drops the real bomb. His original aim for this entire journey was to create a harem. He would expect shock or anger, but the reaction is the exact opposite. Instead of being offended, the girls decide that a harem actually suits them perfectly, leaving Wazoo completely bewildered. As they prepare for bed, the women share a secret. They realize Wazoo is too focused on social status, so they've decided to make sure he sees them as women first. And they're more than happy to join that harem. The tension is peaking, as the 2 sisters resolve to launch a full-on attack of love on the man they adore, even imagining their parents' blessing for their bold plan. A pact is made. With a soft whisper of Wazoo-sama, the 2 girls slide into bed, surrounding the sleeping warrior in a cozy, daring embrace. Wazoo wakes up to a total system shock. He's trapped between 2 beautiful princesses, and his brain practically shuts down as he realizes he's being cuddled from both sides. The sensory overload hits hard. Between the scent of shampoo and the warmth of their bodies, Wazoo's inner monologue spirals into a panic. Is he actually being seduced? After a brief, chaotic detour through his thoughts about blessed lives, Wazoo regains his composure. He decides to be the ultimate gentleman, ensuring the princesses rest safely in his arms. Morning arrives, and Wazoo is as oblivious as ever, praising the weather. Meanwhile, the girls are in a frenzy, some swooning over his gentlemanly nature, others plotting to win him over with lunch and sword skills. The quest leads them to a mysterious cave rumored to be a vampire's lair. But instead of a dark dungeon, they find something completely unexpected. A cozy house sitting in a sunlit field. Enter the vampire. Instead of a brooding creature of the night, they find a shirtless, muscular man absolutely loving the morning sun. The group is left completely bewildered. This is not the vampire they were expecting. The terrifying vampire is actually a passionate gardener, chatting with his tomato-chan and cabbage-chan. When the group finally speaks up, the contrast between his hobby and his species is just too much to process. The moment he realizes there are girls present, the tough vampire completely collapses into a blushing mess. He screams in frustration and bolts away, leaving the group wondering if they just met the world's most awkward monster. The group is completely baffled. They're staring at a man who is supposed to be a vampire, But he's got a tan, which is basically a crime for the undead. Confused by the lack of vampire vibes, they decide the only way to get answers is to just go talk to him. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts into high drama. Enter Rial, a vampire who leans fully into the villain trope, laughing maniacally as he proclaims himself the harbinger of death. He's ready to deliver them to their doom with all the theatricality of a stage play. And then, total silence. Despite the screaming and the threats, Wazoo and his companions feel absolutely zero tension. They're not terrified, they're practically bored, wondering if they've met this menace the wrong way. The mood flips instantly as Rial drops the act and apologizes profusely. The whiplash is real. Seeing how pathetic he's become, the group suggests they just scrap the whole thing and redo their meeting from the beginning. Determined to make the most of the situation, the group gets hyped up, pretending they're on a desperate quest for a vampire's fang. Rial takes the cue and dives right back into his dark persona, laughing his head off as they approach his mansion. But the Dark Lord image is shattered in seconds by a violent coughing fit. Water in the windpipe? It's a pathetic sight that leaves Wazoo staring at him with a look of pure, unfiltered disappointment. He tries to regain his dignity, but the world is against him. Between the dazzling sunlight hurting his eyes and a sudden swarm of bats, Rial's attempt at being scary turns into a panicked meltdown. One strike is all it takes to send him flying. Now bruised and broken, Rial begs for one last chance, desperate to prove he can act with the dignity befitting a vampire. Wazoo isn't in the mood for a second act. Another overwhelming blow sends Rial crashing through the scenery, leaving the vampire terrified and pleading for forgiveness. Completely defeated, Rial sobs and begs not to be exterminated. But when Wazoo calmly explains they only want a single fang, the vampire's paranoia spikes. Is this some twisted trap to trick him into giving up his more valuable parts? In a sudden burst of generosity, the vampire offers up his own fang to help make a medicine, practically beaming with joy. But as he presents the gift, Wazoo and his companions are left completely baffled. Why on earth did he tie it with a cute little ribbon? After handing over the fang, Wazoo asks the one question that should be a deal-breaker for any vampire. How is he perfectly fine in the sunlight? The answer is absurdly simple. He claims he just overcame it through sheer hard work, perseverance, and patience. Just as the group prepares to leave, the vampire breaks down, desperately begging them to stay a little longer. He admits he's incredibly lonely, and just wants someone to listen to his life story, leaving Wazoo's party feeling a sudden wave of pity for the pathetic creature. Streaming down his face, he confesses that he's been isolated for so long he's forgotten how to count the days. Seeing his misery, one of the girls suggests a solution. If he's that lonely, why not just move in with Anine? The conversation shifts to the strange barriers of the cave, but then the vampire drops a bombshell that leaves everyone speechless. He admits to a fear so unexpected it defies all vampire logic. He is absolutely terrified of bats. He explains that a childhood trauma involving a bat bite left him scarred for life, and the mere thought of them sends him diving headfirst into his casket for safety. The girls can only stare in disbelief at his shockingly weak mental strength. Wazoo suggests flying out through a hole in the ceiling, but the vampire is too paralyzed by the swarm of bats above to move. In a twist of irony, he reveals that his fiancée, Anine, lives in the Bat Mansion, making his phobia a massive problem for his future marriage. The group can't help but wonder how he'll ever manage to marry someone who loves bats if he can't even look at them. But as they pity him, a single bat suddenly flutters right toward Wazoo, setting the stage for a chaotic reaction. A vampire screams in terror, but as he looks at Wazoo, his fear suddenly shifts. He realizes that while bats are scary, Wazoo is infinitely more terrifying. His phobia has been completely overwritten by the sheer presence of the man. The girls burst into laughter, explaining that he's essentially cured because he's now more afraid of Wazoo than any bat. Overjoyed by this accidental breakthrough, the vampire enthusiastically thanks Wazoo and invites him to his wedding. Finally ready to face his fiancée. Mission cleared. The group returns in triumph, but while Nil celebrates the recovery of the vampire's fang, Wazoo is absolutely spent, his energy completely drained from the ordeal. The ride back is anything but peaceful. With a girl clinging tightly to him, Wazoo finds himself in a desperate mental battle, frantically trying to banish the evil thoughts triggered by the sudden closeness. Even in sleep, the struggle continues as Wazoo is flanked by two beautiful women, his subconscious still screaming for those temptations to be gone. But the moment of rest is short-lived as he is summoned back to the city. Back at the palace, Wazoo looks like he's been through a war, leaving everyone wondering how he got so beat up. Meanwhile, Nil wastes no time shifting his focus to a nearby maid, becoming instantly obsessed with the beauty of her collarbones. Just as Nil's creepy advances reach a fever pitch, a boot flies in from nowhere. Wazoo delivers a crushing kick to the skeleton, outraged that Nil is trying to seduce a maid while he was out risking his life for ingredients. Nil tries to recruit Wazoo into his quest for maid seduction, but Wazoo isn't having it. He just wants to finish the medicine. As they discuss the vampire's fang, Nil reflects on how the city just doesn't feel as right as his home in the swamp. In the quiet of the lab, the medicine is finally prepared. Nil is practically glowing with joy, clutching a drawing Wazoo made for him, a skeleton that perfectly captures his ideal type. A moment of truth arrives as Wazoo presents the final product to the royal party. In his hand is the legendary cure for the eternal sleeping drug, the only hope for the fallen monarch. The atmosphere is thick with tension as they approach the unconscious king. With a single drop of the medicine, the fate of the kingdom hangs in the balance. Will the king finally wake up? He doesn't just wake up, he explodes into consciousness. King Gavilio Mandant bolts upright with a roar, pointing a finger at Wazoo and screaming that he has seen all of his evil deeds. Up, the bearded man snaps his awake. But there's something off, he's blushing furiously. The women watching him can't help but wonder, did he just have a very nice dream? The tension is thick as the group gathers around the mysterious lump under the covers. Navilio questions if the medicine will finally wake the king, while others suggest they should stop digging into it and just let him wake up naturally. With a sudden burst of energy, the king bolts upright, shouting in total confusion about why everyone is crowded around him. His daughters immediately rush to him, crying out for their father in relief. The king is practically smothered in a whirlwind of hugs from his daughters, though he's still struggling to get his body to cooperate. But as the joy settles, he realizes Miralina is still fast asleep, leaving him panicked about what happened to her. Miralina finally wakes up with a lazy yawn, completely oblivious to the chaos. Once reunited with her family, Navilio drops a bombshell. They've been betrayed by someone they trusted as family in a plot to seize control of the country. Navilio explains that the same person who provided the cursed items was likely the one who put the king and queen to sleep. To catch the traitor, the king decides to play along and pretend he's still unconscious, leaving Navilio to oversee the operation. Now comes the awkward part. Wazoo's introduction. He's a nervous wreck, stuttering about being a C-rank adventurer in front of royalty, but the king and queen are instantly charmed by his humble and kind nature. Wazoo tries to brush off his achievements as mere luck, but the royal couple won't have it. They shower him with gratitude for saving not just them, but their knights and children, even insisting he drop the formalities. The king and queen beam at Wazoo with an overwhelming peremptory smile that leaves him completely flustered. Watching this, the daughters realize just how much their parents like him, and a mischievous idea for a reward begins to form. Manisha leans in to whisper the reward to Wazoo, a luxurious, carefree life in a massive mansion. While it sounds like a dream to most, Wazoo's face pales. To an adventurer, a golden cage means he can't go on journeys anymore. A warm gesture of support leaves Wazoo flustered, but the mood quickly shifts to business as the group prepares a strategic plan. As he's led to his room, Orlando can't help but brag about his rapid promotion from apprentice to a full knight. The bond between the two grows as Orlando places his absolute faith in Wazoo's strength, urging him to become a brilliant knight and protect the realm. With a final, boisterous shout, the two part ways against the backdrop of the sprawling royal capital. Wazoo crashes hard, falling into a deep slumber that lasts for 2 whole days. He wakes up with a start to find Cassie watching over him, her presence the first thing he sees as he slowly returns to consciousness. 2 days? Wazoo is absolutely floored by how long he's been out. As he tries to shake off the grogginess, Cassie takes care of him with a tenderness that makes the morning feel surprisingly soft. A sudden realization hits Wazoo. Cassie is doing for him exactly what he had hoped to do for others. He catches her staring, and that one warm, knowing smile sends his heart racing. Just when Wazoo thinks he's being supportive, Cassie drops a bombshell of a confession. She's perfectly fine with him being the one to marry her. His brain practically shuts down, but as he looks at her, he can't deny that she's never looked cuter. Back to reality, the strategy is laid bare. The plan is a massive gamble, a staged battle between 2 armies to lure the mastermind out of hiding. It's a high-stakes farce, and every move is calculated. The web of deception deepens as they plant false rumors to protect the crown. But with the mastermind's location still a mystery, the team must split their forces, leaving both the royal capital and the plains vulnerable. The weight of the entire operation now rests on one man's shoulders. They call him their most powerful asset, and while Wazoo knows his limits, he accepts the burden of being the ultimate insurance policy for the kingdom. With a communication ring as their only link, the final preparations are complete. As he watches their determination, Wazoo finds a new purpose for his overwhelming power, not for glory, but to ensure that the people he cares about stay safe. The operation in the frozen wastes is underway, but it's a dangerous gamble. Wazoo is relieved that the cursed items are poorly made, while Namanisha reveals the secret. They must pretend to be under control to keep the mastermind in the dark. Everything depends on this deception going smoothly. The tension peaks as Wazu prepares for the final confrontation. He's eager to put an end to this nightmare. But first, he has a tender moment, entrusting his little companion Mir to Namanisha's care before heading into the fray. The weight of everyone's hope now falls on his shoulders. With worried glances and words of encouragement from Namanisha and Cassie, Wazu charges forward with a roar, promising to deliver the victory they all need. But, from the shadows, a sinister observer watches the farce with amusement. The hooded mastermind isn't fooled by the royal siblings' ploy, and their interest is now piqued by the presence of the strongest man, Wazu. The stakes just skyrocketed. The mastermind reveals another monster of a man, an S-rank adventurer equal to Wazu in power. Now, the stage is set for a clash of titans that the villain can't wait to witness. Meanwhile, in the royal capital of Manbond, the royal family is playing a dangerous game of hide-and-seek. While the king struggles and fails to pretend to sleep, Namanisha warns them that the enemy's true target remains a mystery. Namanisha begins to piece together the puzzle, realizing her own safety isn't a coincidence, but a clue. By analyzing how the rest of the royal family was neutralized, she's closing in on the truth of the conspiracy. When realization hits like a thunderbolt, the culprit wants Namanisha. With the enemy's goal revealed, Cassie steps up as the ultimate shield, swearing to crush anyone who dares approach her lady. The defense is locked down. With a sword and a whip ready to deliver some serious discipline, Namanisha feels a wave of relief. The royal family might be in chaos, but her protectors are more than ready for a fight. Namanisha places her faith in Wazu and the siblings, but the danger is closer than she thinks. As she's warned to stay away from the windows, the hooded mastermind is already strolling through the city, a predator closing in on its prey. The calm before the storm is shattered as Mir-chan reacts in shock. The scene opens wide to reveal the staggering scale of the Bond Plains, where two massive armies stand poised for a clash that will decide the fate of the land. Tension peaks as two powerful figures face off. A woman in heavy armor glares with cold intensity, while beside her a man lets out a thunderous cry, "My brother!" sensing a shockwave of anticipation through the ranks. The rivalry turns deadly as one woman declares her intent to kill her opponent and seize rule of the country. Her sister only scoffs at her bravery, before both leaders scream the same command, "Fight!" Watching from the sidelines, Wazu remains suspiciously calm. He checks the ring Cassie gave him, noting a total lack of reaction, and concludes that this entire epic battle is likely nothing more than a staged farce. Despite his skepticism, Wu keeps a close eye on Novilio and Naralina, wondering if they're both being set up to fall. He decides the situation calls for his special skill, just as a voice calls out his name from nearby. It's time to see what's really happening. Wazu activates presence sensing, expanding his awareness into the surrounding woods to count the hidden threats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Suddenly, a massive spike of power hits him like a physical blow. Wazu reels back in shock, realizing that one of those hidden figures is overwhelmingly strong. Realization is chilling. This opponent is S-rank, a level of power that matches his own. But before he can process it, a violent explosion of force rips through the battlefield. In an instant, the tide turns. Novilio and Naralina are slammed into the dirt, leaving their armies in a state of absolute panic. As the soldiers scream for their fallen leaders, Wazu wonders if the enemy just bit the bait. Wazu watches the chaos with a faint, knowing smile. To everyone else, it's a disaster, but to him, it's an amazing act. The mysterious attacker has finally made their move. A chilling laugh echoes through the air as a man revels in the chaos, mocking everyone for being made fools of. The shock is instantaneous. The dark-haired man realizes the truth and screams out in desperation, identifying the real culprit. Denroga. Manisha's eyes harden with a cold, unwavering resolve. She won't forgive him for what he's done. With her sisters by her side, fueled by the pain of their tortured family and the passionate cheers of their parents, they charge toward the Bond Plains for a final showdown. Denroga stands before Novilio and Naralina, his voice dripping with condescension as he exposes their timid act as a total fake. He reveals that the cursed items he gave them have finally worn off, unveiling the bold, true nature of the man known as Denroga Frebond. The mask is completely gone now. Denroga coldly admits that his plan involved the death of the entire royal family. And while his cursed items were destroyed sooner than expected, he's come in person to ensure they die right here. Behind him, a wall of red-armored knights stands ready, the same ruthless soldiers who attacked Mima village. When questioned about his motives and why Namanisha's own fiancé would betray her, Denroga only lets out a dark, mysterious chuckle. He doesn't just want the throne. He claims it as his birthright. In a bombshell revelation that leaves everyone speechless, he discards the name Freebond and reveals his true identity. Denroga Gunnarbond, the secret son of the previous king. Claiming to be the rightful heir, Denroga declares that the throne is his if the Manbond family is erased. Just as the tension reaches a breaking point, Namanisha and her companions thunder onto the scene on horseback, arriving just in time. Denroga, being a mere fiancé to a second princess, was never enough. He wants the crown, and anyone in the royal family who stands in his way is just an obstacle. As Namanisha arrives, he grins, declaring that all the actors have finally taken their places. The threat is absolute. Denroga intends to slaughter the king and queen after finishing them off, but Namanisha isn't backing down. She draws her blade, determined that defeating him here is the only way to end the Freebond family's twisted plan. Amidst the clash, a woman named Relaya confirms a shocking detail to her companion. Standing there with an overwhelming, crushing presence is a man she knows all too well, the formidable Fruger Razor. A terrifying new threat emerges, an S-rank adventurer specialized in instant-kill close-range combat. As the details of his loyalty to the previous king come to light, Wazoo begins to realize the sheer scale of the danger he's facing. The comparison is staggering. This man possesses the same monstrous power as Wazoo himself, a true clash between the strongest. But instead of fear, a wild grin spreads across Wazoo's face. For the first time in a long time, he's found someone who can actually push him, and he's absolutely loving it. Meanwhile, the battlefield grows tense as reinforcements arrive. A blonde commander realizes with a shock that the enemies they're facing are the same ones Wazoo fought during his journey. Enter Navilio-sama, bringing a crushing numerical advantage. With 2,000 knights against a mere 800, he coldly advises Denroga to surrender, as victory is mathematically impossible. A blow to morale is doubled when the enemy's secret weapon is revealed. Fruger Razor Dono. The realization hits the allies like a ton of bricks. They're facing another S-rank monster just like Wazoo. Wazoo and Fruger lock eyes in a silent, heavy standoff. Navilio admits that the numbers alone might not be enough to secure a win, but he has one more trick up her sleeve. With a sinister smile, Navilio reveals a mysterious black sphere capable of unleashing absolute chaos. Before anyone can react, a sudden violent force sends Wazoo flying backward. A desperate cry for Wazoo rings out as he's slammed away by a devastating blow. As the dust settles, Navilio's gaze turns cold, his intentions becoming clear. Then, the nightmare begins. Navilio unleashes the great gospel of darkness, summoning a colossal vortex of void. Realizing the sheer lethality of the attack, a struggling Wazoo screams a final desperate warning. Run! Denroga reveals a sinister secret, recalling a black ball from an elf village capable of controlling hundreds of monsters. He holds up the orb with a smirk, calling it just one of his trump cards, and hinting that something far worse is yet to come. Then, he unleashes the real nightmare. The red ball! A blinding flash erupts as he mocks the filthy little adventurer standing before him. He didn't just come to fight. He came to instill absolute terror in everyone present. In an instant, the landscape is swarmed by a monstrous army, ordered to surround the group and protect Navilio-sama at all costs. Neralina and Namanisha brace themselves, determined to put an end to Denroga's madness. Denroga knows he can't beat Namanisha in a fair fight, but he doesn't play fair. He plays the numbers game. But just as he prepares to crush them, Wazoo screams, "Stop!" and launches a desperate high-impact strike. Denroga is livid that a mere pest is interfering, but the mood shifts to pure horror when the others realize Wazoo has swallowed the ball. Suddenly, a dark, oppressive aura explodes from him, swallowing the light. The transformation is complete, and Denroga has become a grotesque titan of flesh and eyes. He howls with manic laughter, feeling an absurd amount of energy coursing through his mutated body, while the others watch in sheer disbelief. With dreadful claws now at his disposal, the monster boasts about tearing his enemies apart like insects. But Princess Neralina isn't backing down. She lunges forward with her sword, swearing to kill him no matter what form he takes. Steel clashes against monstrous hide in a violent spark. Denroga only sneers at her effort, mocking the princess as he asks what she possibly thinks she can achieve with that tiny sword. Strikes again with overwhelming force, but a shimmering barrier erupts just in time to save them. While Neralina urges Namanisha to find a new weapon, the monster growls in frustration, vowing to rip the barrier to shreds. Just as the tension peaks, a woman with glasses and a sword steps in, refusing to let the monster have his way. After the clash, a bruised Wazoo apologizes to Navilio for his lack of dodging. But Navilio sees a different path, asking if he can rely on Wazoo's strength to take down Fruger. The stakes are set. This clash is a royal family problem, and the goal is clear: defeat Denroga. Amidst the tension, the mustachioed warrior shares a moment of mutual respect with Wazoo, promising to buy him time while Wazoo cheers him on to victory. A sudden interruption. A small chirping dragon-like creature crashes into the scene, leaving Wazoo flustered as he tries to get the little thing to wait in a safe place. But the mustachioed warrior has no patience for distractions. He asks with a cold edge if Wazoo is finally done talking. The air crackles as the two powerhouses face off. The warrior admits that at his level, fighting has become boring, but he sees something in Wazoo. He challenges the young man, wondering if Wazoo is the one who can finally entertain him. No more words. They explode into motion, blurring across the landscape in a sudden, violent collision. Wazoo throws a heavy punch, but the impact is a thunderclap that shakes the very ground. Wazoo thinks he has the upper hand, but the tide turns in a heartbeat. With a brutal, lightning-fast kick, the warrior sends Wazoo spiraling backward, leaving him gasping in total shock. It's a one-sided slaughter. Every time Wazoo tries to strike, he's met with an impenetrable wall of skill. One devastating blow sends Wazoo flying through the air, leaving the warrior staring in disbelief at the sheer raw power he's feeling. The warrior delivers a crushing critique. Wazoo has the physical strength of an ancient tree rooted in the earth, but the technique of a wild beast. To a master, Wazoo is nothing more than a powerful amateur who doesn't know how to fight. Appointed by the lack of skill, the warrior decides to end it quickly so he can join the massive war raging in the distance. But Wazoo isn't finished. He lunges forward with a desperate roar, refusing to let his opponent walk away. The warrior smiles, acknowledging that while Wazoo might be physically stronger, he lacks the skill to actually land a hit. It's time for a lesson, a brutal demonstration of what a real S-ranker is capable of. Then comes the impact. A blinding explosion of power slams into Wazoo, a strike so overwhelming it shatters the atmosphere. Wazoo can only stare in wide-eyed terror as the full weight of an S-ranker's strength crashes down upon him. A violent swirling vortex of energy erupts, slamming into Wazoo and leaving him gasping for air in a state of total shock. The aftermath is brutal. Wazoo coughs up blood as the towering Denroga looms over him, coldly explaining his terrifying power, injecting magic directly into an opponent's body to shred their internal organs. The reveal is chilling. Denroga declares himself the destroyer, mocking Wazoo's external invulnerability while his insides are being pulverized. He tells the broken warrior to simply suffer. Just as Denroga moves to finish the job, a flash of steel intervenes. Namanisha throws herself into the fray, screaming that she won't let him touch them. The clash is violent, but Denroga is a monster. He brushes off her efforts as a little trick and sends her crashing back with overwhelming force. With Namanisha down, Naralina steps forward, her expression grim. She orders her sister to step back, declaring herself the new opponent for the destroyer. The battle intensifies, with Denroga's strikes raining down like hammers. Despite Namanisha's panicked cries for her big sister, the assault is relentless. Denroga sneers, asking Princess Naralina if it's finally time to die. But the woman reveals a shocking truth. She isn't the princess, she's Namanisha, and she's played him for a fool. The tension peaks as Namanisha screams her defiance, declaring she rejected his engagement and has already found the man she truly wants to marry. Denroga's patience snaps, and he prepares for a final, lethal blow. Just as the blade descends to claim her head, a sudden strike shatters the momentum. Wazoo returns to the fight, telling the sisters to step aside and leave the rest to him. The air turns toxic with arrogance as a man declares himself the true successor to the throne. With a maniacal laugh, he vows to slaughter everyone and claim the country of Manbond as his own. He mocks Navilio, questioning what orders a failed prince could possibly give. But the soldiers aren't buying it. They snap back with fierce loyalty, warning the villain that no one will ever follow his commands. The soldiers' defiance reaches a fever pitch, shouting that they belong only to Navilio. But just as the tension peaks, a monstrous roar shatters the moment, and a colossal beast lunges from the shadows. The villain laughs as the monster begins tearing through the ranks, telling the survivors to abandon their prince before they become monster food. But seeing his precious friends hurt triggers something dangerous in Wazoo. His expression darkens as a cold rage takes over. A massive explosion of power erupts as Wazoo declares he will never forgive the man. The blow is so devastating it sends the villain reeling, leaving him coughing up blood and terrified by Wazoo's unnatural auto-healing abilities. Refusing to back down, the villain decides to crank his power to the limit to see exactly how much Wazoo's body can endure. Wazoo finds himself trapped in a barrage of unknown magic, wondering how long he can possibly stand the onslaught. The pressure is suffocating. Even if he can survive the hits, Wazoo realizes he has no clear way to strike back, and with time running out, he's desperate for a plan, becoming a nightmare. The attacks are so relentless that Wazoo's auto-healing can't keep up, and he feels his very internals beginning to tear apart under the strain. In the depths of his agony, a memory surfaces, the feeling of absolute death he faced when he first climbed the mountain of death. He remembers the starvation, the desperation, and the small creature, Mir, who shared her food and saved his life. That memory sparks a realization. If he could eat anything to survive the mountain, maybe he can do it now. With a grateful thought toward Mir, Wazoo finds his opening, telling the little creature to stay back as he prepares a wild new strategy. Wazoo is absolutely hyped, flashing a thumbs up and shouting as he prepares for the fight of his life. He's not holding anything back, challenging his opponent to bring everything he's got. while the muscular warrior just looks on in total confusion. The atmosphere shifts instantly as Wazoo decides to stop holding back and charges in. But the result is a total disaster. A massive impact sends him flying backward with bone-shattering force. A colossal explosion rips through the area, leaving the muscular warrior stunned. But out of the dust and rubble, Wazoo emerges, coughing and bloodied, with a wild grin on his face. He's still standing, and he's just getting started. The battle erupts into a blur of high-speed clashes and devastating explosions. While the opponent laughs off the assault with a mocking jiggy, Wazoo is pushing his body to the absolute limit. The tide turns as the muscular warrior looms over a broken Wazoo, coldly telling him that he simply cannot win. But even as he bleeds and struggles to breathe, Wazoo feels it. A hunch that the opening he needs is finally here. His body is screaming for him to stop, but Wazoo forces himself to stay conscious for just one more second. Then, in a flash of blinding speed, he launches a desperate, all-out strike that leaves his opponent completely blindsided. The counterattack is brutal, sending Wazoo spiraling high into the sky. As he falls toward the earth, a dragon looms in the distance, and the situation looks completely hopeless. In a daze, Wazoo calls out for Navi, but he's already in the thick of the fight. Gritting his teeth and refusing to let the battle end here, he declares that she absolutely cannot lose. With a roar of determination, Navi unleashes a devastating sword strike, his mind flashing back to the weight of the war. He remembers the moment he asked Wazoo to handle Fruger, knowing that together, they could defeat Denroga. In her eyes, Wazoo isn't just a companion, he is the sole hope of this entire war. But as the scene cuts back to the present, Wazoo lies motionless on the ground, the weight of everyone's expectations resting on his broken body. A flood of memories crashes back. The agony of losing Arya to the hero and the desperate struggle for survival in the frozen wastes of the snowy mountains. In that desolate void, Wazoo had nothing left in the world except for the mysterious, dormant power surging within him. As Fruger's devastating blow connects, Wazoo doesn't just feel pain. He feels waves of raw magic power rippling through his entire body. He might not understand the mechanics of it, but for the first time, he can truly feel the energy for what it is. Then comes a wild realization. He can eat it. It's just like the bizarre, questionable things he forced himself to consume to survive on the mountain. He knows he has to devour every last drop of this energy before the pain finally catches up to him. With a primal roar, Wazoo stops resisting and starts consuming. He lunges into the attack, literally eating the magic power in a violent, explosive surge of energy. The result is pure ecstasy. Glowing with a newfound radiance and a look of absolute bliss, Wazoo beams at his stunned opponent with a cheeky grin. "Thanks for the meal?" Fruger is completely floored, staring in disbelief at the man who was on the brink of death just seconds ago. How is he standing there as if nothing happened? Wazoo just shrugs it off, attributing his resilience to a diet of bad and weird food from his early days. With a confident wink and a lick of his lips, Wazoo reveals his secret. His skill is gluttony. He's a gluttonous adventurer who can treat even the most lethal magic power as a snack. High above the battlefield, a mysterious hooded figure watches the spectacle with keen interest. Intrigued by Wazoo's unique nature, the stranger wonders who truly holds the most power in the north. Fruger is beyond speechless, struggling to process that Wazoo just gambled his life on a whim. The warrior's pride is shattered as Wazoo casually admits this was his first time eating something invisible, treating a legendary power like a common appetizer. Outraged, Fruger screams that no human could possibly be this monstrous, but Wazoo is already bored. As Fruger launches another desperate strike, Wazoo simply reaches out and swallows the attack whole, leaving his opponent in total shock. Before the shockwaves even have a chance to spread, Wazoo strikes. With a look of absolute focus, he screams, "Eat them!" and delivers a devastating kick right to the opponent's backside. The impact is colossal, sending the massive warrior flying. Wazoo admits he was annoyed at getting his own ass kicked earlier, so he decided to return the favor with interest. Though he immediately panics and shouts a quick, "Sorry!" But instead of defeat, the warrior Fruger bursts into manic laughter. To him, putting your life on the line is what makes a fight truly interesting. Wazoo can only stare in disbelief, noting that the man is surprisingly energetic for someone who just had his leg shattered. Not backing down, Wazoo charges back in, vowing to fight until the very end. He's finally unlocked the secret to consuming magic power, realizing that whether this strength came from Mir or the goddesses, his growth depends on his own awakening. No more guessing why he's powerful, he knows. With a roar of conviction, Wazoo unleashes a punch that screams one truth. He is the strongest. The blow is so overwhelming it launches Fruger across the horizon. Wazoo stands still, watching his opponent vanish into the distance before crashing hard into the earth. Beaten and breathless, Fruger can only describe Wazoo as a monster. But Wazoo doesn't take that as a compliment. He firmly declares that no matter how much power he gains, he has no intention of stopping being human. Fruger tries to promise a rematch, but his body gives out, and he instantly falls fast asleep. While Wazoo frantically checks if he's okay, his companion simply shrugs it off, noting that even an S-rank adventurer needs a nap after a beating like that. Wazoo knows this is just the beginning. If he hadn't learned to absorb magic, he might have lost. He's determined to get even stronger to face more opponents like Fruger. Just as nearby, a group of knights is being overwhelmed by an endless swarm of monsters. Just as the knights reach their limit, Wazoo crashes into the fray, obliterating a monster in one hit. With Mir clinging to his shoulder, he tells the stunned soldiers to tend to the wounded, while he takes on the entire army alone. Wazoo is on an absolute rampage, tearing through the battlefield with a single goal: wipe out every last one of them. He doesn't care if they're monsters or the arrogant red-armored soldiers. None of them are getting away. Even the ones thinking they're safe in the sky aren't exempt. Wazoo launches himself upward with terrifying speed, screaming that they're simply in his way, before slamming into a flying monster with brutal force. Standing amidst the wreckage of his enemies, Wazoo lets out a roar that shakes the air. His message to the remaining monsters is simple: get back to the mountains now, or be crushed into nothing. Meanwhile, the red-armored soldiers are clinging to their pride, claiming they're far superior to the weak kingdom's army. But that arrogance vanishes instantly as Orlando cuts through them, leaving them to realize just how wrong they were. Seeing the chaos, Wazoo rushes in to help Orlando and Cassie, but they aren't having it. They insist they can handle the humans themselves, leaving Wazoo to awkwardly pivot and start killing time by capturing the stragglers. Elsewhere, the mood is far more desperate. Navilio is on his knees, gasping for air, while Dinroga looms over him with a cruel smirk, mocking the wise general for having no real power to fight back. Just as Dinroga lunges for the kill, a shimmering barrier flashes into existence. The sisters have stepped in at the perfect moment, leaving the monster completely stunned by the sudden wall of energy. The tide turns in a heartbeat. With a fierce grin, the brave general's sister launches a devastating counterattack, slicing through Dinroga and proving that she's just as dangerous as her brother is wise. Dinroga tries to retreat into the air, but he's already been read. The female knight predicts his every move, deciding that those wings are nothing more than an annoying obstacle that needs to be removed. One clean, powerful strike and Dinroga's wings are gone. Grounded and broken, he tries to crawl away, but the blade is already at his throat. It's over. Dinroga has nowhere left to run. A devastating blow lands, leaving no room for escape. Dinroga and the Manbond family declare their victory, ending the war with a cold final apology. Desperation turns into a fierce vow. As the battle reaches its peak, they scream their resolve to protect the Manbond kingdom at any cost. One final, crushing strike. With a guttural scream, the enemy is literally shattered into pieces, leaving nothing behind. The dust settles over the mountains, and Wazoo is just laughing? While his companions complain that he stole all the glory, he's genuinely surprised that he feels a bit stronger. Time for a status check. Wazoo's guild card reveals some absurd unique skills, but the real shock comes from the Earth Goddess. She admits to overprotecting him to prevent any internal damage, practically forcing him to stay human. It gets weirder. A hot-blooded battle goddess is already demanding a rematch, but Wazoo has a bigger problem. His human percentage is dropping. Between the stat decay and the goddesses fighting over who owns him, he just wants some peace and quiet. Out of nowhere, a familiar hooded figure steps into view. Wazoo freezes. Could it really be Shiro returning after all this time? With the enemy captured, the immediate crisis is over. As the group reflects on how Wazoo saved countless lives, a lingering question remains. Who was actually pulling the strings behind this whole mess? Ullo reveals he's been watching Wazoo's growth from the shadows, expressing genuine shock that Wazoo took down an unawakened demon king. But the conversation takes a dark turn as they discuss the trash heart of the enemy and the failure of the vessel. The pieces finally click. From the suspicious red balls to the hooded figure in the alley, Wazoo realizes the truth. He looks at Shiro and says the words he's been dreading. He knows exactly who's been selling those cursed items. And Shiro? He just grins. The truth finally drops. The hooded figure is the main culprit behind everything. When Wazoo tries to get answers, the mysterious stranger tells him to just follow and observe, but shuts down any questions about the balls with a cold refusal. It turns out this stranger is obsessed with power. They're fascinated by Wazoo's strength, wondering if he's actually more powerful than the girl known as Sloth. After mentioning envy and lust, the hooded figure makes it clear they aren't leaving without a show. They demand to see Wazoo fight Sloth, completely ignoring his confusion and reluctance. Then in a flash of absolute chaos, the mood flips. The hooded figure strikes with blinding speed, snatching Mir away in a violent vortex of energy while Wazoo screams in horror. Mir is trapped inside a crystal, and the culprit has a twisted plan. If Wazoo wants his little dragon back, he'll have to track them down at a spa town in the far north of the continent. With a chillingly playful smile, the stranger warns that they might be enemies next time. Then, with a simple bye-bye, they vanish into thin air, leaving a devastated Wazoo behind. Once stunned and desperate, Wazoo tells his companions he has to go after Mir. The people of Manbon bid him a heartfelt farewell, knowing there's no way he could leave his friend behind. The girls are not letting him go easily. They're desperate to join the rescue mission, with one even boldly volunteering to be his personal escort, leaving Wazoo completely overwhelmed. Before he departs, a high-ranking woman gives him a powerful tool, a special badge that will allow him to raise his rank across every guild on the continent just by mentioning her name. One last wave, and Wazoo sets off on a new dangerous journey. As he disappears into the distance, the girls watch him with lingering gazes, their hearts clearly following him. It all started in Mima Village, where a single rescue sparked a fire that would never go out. For Namanisha, it wasn't just gratitude, it was love at first sight, even if her early attempts to win Wazoo's heart were clumsy and ungraceful. From burning jealousy over the smallest things to defying her own royal status, her resolve only grew stronger. She doesn't care about arranged marriages or princess protocols. She's decided that the ultimate reward for saving her country is her own heart. The memory of her desperate plea for him to wait still echoes in her mind. Now, looking back, every moment spent with him feels like a treasure she's not ready to let go of. In her darkest hour when she had lost all reason, Wazoo was the only ray of light that reached her. For a warrior who knew only fighting, his hug was the first time she ever felt true peace and tranquility. And quiet nights camping on the way to the vampire's mansion are etched in her mind, especially the warmth of sleeping with him in her arms. She'll admit it. She was so desperate for his attention, she even wished he'd attack her, just to feel his strength. She knows she might not have the typical womanly personality, but she has a warrior's heart. Her vow is simple. She will protect Wazoo and pour out every ounce of her love for him in her own unique way. Back in the present, the sisters are locked and loaded, ready to hunt down Wazoo. But the real shock comes from their father. The king actually gives them his blessing with a casual sure. Wait, the king isn't just being nice. He's playing 4D chess. He absolutely loathes the prime minister's son and sees Namanisha's obsession with Wazoo as the perfect excuse to scrap the arranged marriage and purge the corruption from his kingdom. The mother is just as eager, already dreaming of grandchildren. While she warns them to stay safe and take an escort, the sisters are already mentally halfway to Wazoo's side. Just as they're about to depart, Kumiya leads them to the parlor for a mysterious meeting. There sits Relaya, holding a message from a hero who used to follow Wazoo in the south, and it looks like the plot is about to thicken. A sudden mention of a familiar name sparks a conversation. The Saint Arya has visited Manbond. But as the news sinks in, the realization hits. She's already gone, leaving behind only a trail of mysterious council business in the Southwest Kingdom. The news of Arya's visit comes with a chilling warning. The Southwest Kingdom is a dangerous zone. As the girls process this, a single anxious thought lingers. Will Wazoo be okay? Or is he walking straight into trouble again? Flashback to a little earlier, where a hooded woman and her companion are cornered in a city alley. The thugs think they've found an easy target, mocking the woman's disguise and eyeing her legs with predatory intent. But the easy target just unleashed a nightmare. With a single devastating blast of wind magic, the thugs are obliterated in a storm of death, revealing the hidden identity of a noble elf who doesn't take kindly to harassment. Now Sirona and Tata have finally arrived at the fortified city of Linux. While they hope for a reunion with their loved one, the goddess watches from above, amused by the possibility that they might never find Wazoo at all. Returning to Linux is a nightmare for Tata, who trembles at the memory of the lord who once tormented her. Sirona notices her fear, wondering if the thugs they just crushed are related to the man who broke Tata's spirit. Sirona vows to be Tata's shield, promising that no man is strong enough to get past an elf warrior. But this spark of protection ignites a fire in Tata. She refuses to be a burden and declares her intent to master martial arts and swordsmanship just to earn her place in Wazoo's harem. Sirona can't help but laugh at the idea of the gentle Tata becoming a warrior. But she offers a more practical suggestion. Even the invincible Wazoo struggles when protecting others. So why not learn magic barriers to be the ultimate support? With a tender smile, Sirona reminds Tata that kindness and comfort are forms of protection too. Overwhelmed by this big sister energy, Tata is fully committed. She'll master harmonious magic to be the support Wazoo-sama truly needs. A moment of inspiration is cut short by a loud scolding from their companions. They're warned that Linux is still crawling with remnants of the former lord's regime, greedy thugs who want revenge on Tata, making it urgent that they find Wazoo and get out of this hellhole. Tata's world practically flips upside down when Garrett reveals that Wazoo had just left Linux the moment she arrived. Her mind spirals into a chaotic panic. Did Wazoo change his preferences to men, Because he couldn't have a harem, desperate for answers, Garrett quickly steers them toward the guildmaster Reagan, who might know exactly where Wazoo is heading. Enter Reagan, the guildmaster, who drops a major lead. Wazoo has headed for the royal capital. Serona doesn't mince words, boldly admitting she's searching for him specifically to join his harem. Reagan just laughs it off, noting that when a man is that overwhelmingly strong, this kind of Wazoo disease is only natural. Reagan offers them a stay at the guild inn, but the real shocker is that Wazoo once slept there. Serona's eyes light up with a dangerous intensity at the prospect of sharing his bed, while Reagan mentions his sister, Relaya, a guildmaster in the capital who can help them. The plan is set, and the girls are ready to move. As Garrett escorts them to the Wind of Light Inn, the peaceful atmosphere is shattered. A mysterious voice cuts through the air, recognizing Tata and signaling that their journey is about to get a lot more complicated. The trap is already set. Suddenly, a group of thugs, revealed to be the Lord's men, surround the group with a sinister ultimatum: hand over Tata, or else. While the tension spikes, Serona doesn't flinch, stepping forward with a protective gaze to shield Tata from the creeps. The thugs' true colors bleed through as they brag about having fun with Tata before delivering her to Wazoo. They spit out his name with pure venom, swearing to beat the life out of him and make him regret every single thing he's done. Serona has heard enough. With a flash of steel, she lunges at the thug, declaring that he is the one who will be feeling regret. But just as the strike is about to land, Reagan suddenly appears, intercepting the attack in a blur of motion. Reagan plays the peacemaker for a split second, reminding everyone that they're still inside the guild. He calmly lures the thugs outside to avoid property damage, only to flip the switch the moment they hit the street. Now that you're out, do whatever you want. Total chaos erupts. The thugs try to fight back, but they've awakened a sleeping giant. Local adventurers swarm the street, fueled by their loyalty to Wazoo and Mir-chan, turning the encounter into a one-sided massacre in Wazoo's honor. Serona is completely baffled by the town's sudden, violent mobilization for Wazoo. However, Tata's realization is far more terrifying. If Wazoo is actually hurt, the legendary Dragon King Mir will descend upon the world. The town isn't just protecting Wazoo, they're protecting the world from the aftermath. Tension snaps as a black-haired girl confirms the shocking truth with a triumphant shout. Yes, he really is. The blonde elf is left reeling in disbelief, wondering if she's talking about the little dragon's father. Before the mood shifts into a chaotic, cuddly pile of girls on a bed, the gossip flows freely as they recall a meeting in a port town. But the conversation quickly turns to a more delicious topic: Serona's jealousy. The blonde elf is teased relentlessly for running away just because Wazoo made new friends, leaving her flustered and protesting her immaturity while being hugged tight. Then comes the deal. Lula is determined to get the scoop on Wazoo's heroic deeds in Linux, leaving a bald man looking absolutely devastated by the exchange. He's told to just relax since the cute girl will eventually cross paths with Wazoo anyway. And just like that, Lula's grand adventure begins. Not for glory, but for the ultimate tour of the world. While her father collapses in a heap of emotional wreckage over her departure, the other girls can't help but wonder if she's actually interested in Wazoo at all. The scene shifts to the royal capital of Manbond, where a group of women coordinate their next move. With a liaison named Floyd already sent ahead, they prepare to set off in search of Wazoo, bidding a fond farewell to Namanisha and Naralina. Arrival at the city gates is nothing short of a spectacle. As the blonde elf and her black-haired companion step forward, the guards are practically paralyzed by their overwhelming beauty, their brains short-circuiting in the presence of such perfection. Entry is granted once a letter of introduction from the guildmaster of Linux is produced. But the mood turns eerie. Relaya lets out a mysterious, knowing smile that sends a chill down the other's spines. What exactly is she planning? Meanwhile, Wazoo is making his way through the wilderness, but he's not alone. His instincts kick in as he realizes someone has been tailing him the entire time, his gaze sharpening as he prepares to confront the stalker. Out steps Floyd, appearing with a smug grin and claiming he's there to cooperate on Namanisha's orders. Wazoo is far from impressed, questioning why someone who can run that fast felt the need to sneak around like a creep. The two clash in a comedic battle of wills as Floyd tries to be helpful while Wazoo finds him to be a complete pain. But the conversation takes a weird turn when Floyd mentions a hot spring town and claims Wazoo is on the verge of quitting the human race, leaving Wazoo completely baffled by the accusation. A mysterious figure is revealed, and the name drops like a bombshell. This is Hao Sui-sama, the legendary hero of the North. Wazoo can only stare in total shock, his mind racing to process the identity of the woman before him. Usun fills him in on the details, explaining that Hao Sui resides in a distant northern hot spring town and lives only for the thrill of fighting the strong. Wazoo is left puzzled, wondering how someone so volatile could possibly be a friend of Shiro. Wazoo just wants a peaceful journey and prays that this doesn't involve any more weird balls. But the scale of their destination suggests otherwise. They arrive at a breathtaking city nestled in the mountains, where a massive, crowded arena awaits. The atmosphere is electric as a massive warrior mocks Hao Sui, dismissing her as nothing more than a little girl and vowing to be the first to beat her. But as the camera zooms in on her predatory, slit-pupil gaze, it's clear he's drastically underestimated his opponent. With a chilling cold promise, Hao Sui tells the warrior he will lose. Meanwhile, Usun drops the ultimate truth on Wazoo. This girl isn't just a hero, she is known as the world's strongest.